compliance with the Open Public Meeting Law and has been duly advertised in the newspaper as an official meeting. Roll call.
Dr. Osmond? Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. McCarron?
Present.
Mrs. Rivera?
Present.
Mrs. Barocas?
Present.
Mrs. Gardella?
Present.
Mrs. Cass? Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Osmond to come forward and join me in front of the flag for the oath of office. Okay, please repeat after me. I, Erica Osmond, do solemnly swear
I, Erica Osmond, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state,
under the authority of this people, so help me God.
under the authority of the people, so help me God.
I, Erica Osmond, do solemnly swear
I, Erica Osmond, do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education,
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education,
am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1,
okay, am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1,
am not disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJSA 18A:12-1,
am not disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJSA 18A:12-1,
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office accordingly to the best of my ability, so help me God. Thanks.
Before we approve the agenda, we have an addition to personnel and students.
Okay, we're going to add number 24 to personnel as follows. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that employee ID number 114611 is hereby removed from the district substitute list for the 24-25 school year. And the addition to students number 11 reads, resolved that the board affirms the finding of unsubstantiated HIB in case number 271373 JLH 102-42024, and be it further resolved that the family shall be provided with a written decision along with information on their right of appeal.
Thank you. I need a motion for approval of the agenda with the addendum.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. McCarron?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas?
Yes.
Mrs. Gardella?
Yes. I'd like to turn the meeting over to Ms. Permilli for her superintendent's report.
Thank you. And good evening, everyone. So tonight's superintendent's report is going to be rather brief. We'll do a short superintendent's report followed by board business, and then we will present to the board and the public the strategic redistricting and restructuring plan update and recommendations. Following that presentation, there'll be time for the board to ask questions and comment, and following that, there will be an opportunity for public comment from obviously the public. So I'm going to get started right away. I know people are here to hear that update, so we're going to actually begin tonight. We did have our annual audit report. It has been concluded, and we have our auditor here, Ms. Kathy Perry, who's going to come to the podium and just give a brief update on that audit. Whichever you're comfortable with is fine.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Perry. I'm the auditor partner at Jump Perry & Company. We did the audit for June 30th, 2024. It was due to the Department of Education on January 15th. It was filed properly and timely. As part of that audit, we give an opinion on the financial statements, on how you spent your grants, and your internal control. And in all the testing we did, which we test payroll, disbursements, bids, grants, what the grant documents have, and detail out how you should spend the grants, the ones that were selected, we didn't have any findings or any significant question costs, so there were no issues. The financials uploaded had no findings. We went over with the board office. We'd like to thank the board office for all the hard work they did. No one really likes an audit, but they did a great job getting us everything. And if anybody wants to review the audit, is on the New Jersey Department of Education website under Finance. All the audits of all school districts are there, and you can review the audit. Thank you.
Ms. Perry, can I just ask one question? As part of that comprehensive audit, you also select certain grant funds to
Yes.
audit. Could
Yes.
you just comment on a couple of those?
Oh, yes. So you receive federal grants and state grants. And as I said, we review grants. We make selections based on what is a major program. There's significant rules on how we make those selections based on money spent, was it spent in the prior year, and upon reviewing of those grants, we didn't have any findings. So the grants selected this year was a COVID-19 grant, and I believe we also have some state grants and your lunch program. So in those grants, we have to review the grant document, see what your budget was, how you spent the money. We select invoices, or we also look at lunch applications and things like that for lunch, and we did not have any findings on any of those things. You spent the money in accordance with the grant, and that's what we reported on your data collection form, which was filed on 1/15 also.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we are going to now move to one of my favorite parts of our board meeting is our high school board representatives are going to share an update from each of the high schools. So this evening, I'd like to start with Colin from Memorial.
Good evening, Mrs. Permilli, members of the Central Administration staff, and Board of Education members. My name is Colin Williams, and I am the Student Council President at Jackson Memorial High School. It's a privilege to speak with you this evening and share the latest updates and initiatives that make JMHS a dynamic and inspiring place. Our school community continues to thrive through the collaboration and dedication of students, staff, and families. First, the Interact Club is hosting its annual Socks for Seniors drive, which will run from until January 21st. This initiative aims to keep the senior citizens of our community warm this winter. We encourage everyone to donate a pair of crew socks to support this meaningful cause. Donations can be brought to room 156 or dropped in the collection boxes located in the main offices. Thank you to everyone helping to make a difference. The JMHS, DECA, Model Congress, and FBLA are busy competing for leadership positions and attending winter conferences. These organizations give our students outstanding opportunities in the business and political science fields. I would like to congratulate this year's Teacher of the Year, Megan Morrow, a dedicated special education teacher, and Brenda, an outstanding paraprofessional. Their passion and commitment to our students are inspiring, and we are thrilled to celebrate their well-deserved recognition. As we approach the transition to the second semester, students are preparing for final exams, scheduled for January 29th and 30th. January 31st will serve as a transition day, offering students and staff the opportunity to reset and prepare for the new semester. It's a pivotal time of the year, and we encourage everyone to stay focused and finish strong. For seniors, early decision college acceptances are just around the corner, marking an exciting and hopeful period for many of our students. We wish them all the best as they take significant steps towards their future goals and dreams. Our winter sports teams, including basketball, ice hockey, winter track, and wrestling, are in full swing. The athletes and coaches have been working tirelessly to prepare for their seasons, and the excitement is palpable throughout the school. We look forward to cheering on our Jaguars and celebrating their successes. This evening's speech may be brief, but we are already looking forward to the next semester and the many exciting updates and events it will bring. Thank you for your continued support as we work together to make JMHS a thriving and vibrant community. Thank you, Mrs. Permilli and the Board of Education, for your continued support and for allowing me to highlight the outstanding moments at JMHS. I look forward to sharing more updates with you next month. Have a wonderful evening.
As always, Colin, excellent report. Thank you so much for sharing all of that information. Next to the podium to speak about the happenings at Liberty is Katie.
Good evening, Superintendent Permilli, the Board of Education members, guests. It's a pleasure to be here again and share some exciting news happening at Liberty over the past month. First off, the winter sports are in full swing. Our boys wrestling team has a winning record. Armani McCann won first place in the prestigious Mustang Classic Wrestling Tournament, and the boys basketball team has some great wins as well. Indoor track is off to an excellent start with the standout performances from Delaney Spaltoff, Victor Akinbaboye, and Brianna Casillas. Boys bowling has also been impressive, with Jacob Kofinas bowling back-to-back 600 series. The Performing Arts Academy recently had the opportunity to visit the Count Basie Theater, where they enjoyed the show Newsies. Seeing our students gain such valuable exposure to the arts is wonderful. Our performing arts have also been active on the stage. The Atlet players have begun rehearsals for their spring production of Percy Jackson, the Lightning Thief. This will take place on March 6th, 7th, and 8th. We look forward to seeing their hard work pay off on the stage. Tickets go on sale February 15th. Additionally, our clubs have been very productive this month. The Jackson Liberty Key Club is holding a hat and glove drive in partnership with Your Grandmother's Cupboard, a Toms River-based nonprofit. The Leadership Academy is also hosting a Valentine's Drive benefiting Care One. They collect socks, sweatshirts, hygiene products, and coloring books. Finally, the class of 2025 is hosting a big sale to help students enjoy the upcoming half-days. Liberty will be hosting an ESL night on Wednesday, January 29th at 6:30 p.m. This will take place in the main hallway. It'll be a night of games, raffles, and community tables with information on what's going on around Jackson. We will also have the Lions Closet open and available for families and as well as student work on display. As the first semester comes to an end, many of our students earned recognition for their outstanding achievements. Senior Julia Knuth was named 92.7 WOBM Student of the Week, and Senior Delaney Spaltoff was honored at the NJSIAA Girls and Women in Sports Day at a Rutgers basketball game. Additionally, Corey Harnett and Brianna Casillas were named the Athletes of the Month. Many of our seniors are beginning to hear back from colleges and trade schools. I'd like to express my gratitude to our dedicated guidance counselors and staff at Liberty. Without their support, many of us wouldn't be where we are today. I appreciate the opportunity to represent Liberty tonight. I hope you all stay safe in this cold weather, and I wish you all a pleasant evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie, for the wonderful report. Really appreciate the opening of the Lions Closet during some of those activities. Great way to support the community as a whole. Nicely done. So by way of very quick, brief update, I just want to welcome everybody back. This is the first time since winter break, really, that we've done a full public meeting. We might be back from winter break, but obviously the winter has not taken a break. Very chilly weather, and we've had some snow for the first time in a while. So hopefully we don't have to adjust our school schedules anymore for snow, but stay warm, everyone. It's hard to believe it's the end of January already. It's gone quickly. We are, as you heard from the high school reps tonight, we're ending the end of the semester here. Next week, where they're entering into finals, and then there is the professional development day that school's closed for transition for our high school teachers and some of our middle school teachers, and professional development for the rest of our staff. So the year is moving very quickly. In January, there were also many of our elementary concerts or chorus concerts were held. Hopefully you had an opportunity to enjoy some of those wonderful opportunities of our students being able to sing and our incredible music teachers who have instructed them. I want to remind everybody that the 2025-2026 preschool lottery sign-up is currently open. It closes on February 13th at 3 p.m. Please make sure you get in there and apply. Everything is on our district website, so please go there to learn how to sign up. And it is free to Jackson residents with 3- and 4-year-olds. So as I mentioned, it's a busy night tonight, so I am going to conclude this portion of my superintendent's report and turn it back to you. Ms. Gardella.
Thank you. I'd like to do standing committee reports. First committee is Buildings and Grounds. Mr. McCarron.
Yes, capital improvement projects for the district. Holman had 4 trailers that were decommissioned and sold and had been removed. Johnson, trailers 1 through 4 have been decommissioned and sold and also removed. Jackson Liberty Lecture Hall roof drain leak has been repaired and painted. Liberty had 4 subcontracted roof leaks that have also been repaired. All outdoor non-heated areas throughout the district have been winterized. Getz had 2 new OEM control boards for boilers replaced. Switlick is in process of decommissioning 14 trailers, and Switlick installation of a brand new fire alarm panel is taking place. Thank you.
Budget and Finance has no report this month. Transportation had no report this month, and we have Curriculum and Instruction and Special Education. The chairperson is Dr. Osman.
Okay. The Curriculum and Instruction Committee held a virtual meeting to review the CUSAC monitoring of our curriculum and instruction elements. Under district performance elements 1 through 7, the district is evaluated on student proficiency in ELA, math, and science, growth on state assessments based on student growth percentile scores, 4- and 5-year graduation rates, and chronic absenteeism. The scores are all calculated based on the NJDOE rubric. The Department of Education has put out an equivalency application that revises the weightings of some categories. Districts can apply to use this alternative application. Jackson will pass using either formula, but will score higher using the equivalency waiver. The application was reviewed and will be voted on tonight's agenda.
The next report is an ad hoc committee. It's the Advocacy Committee, and I'm the chair. The Department of Education has been holding public hearings regarding S2 funding. I might say the date wrong, but in the last week of December, Mr. Baginski went and spoke, and on January 14th, Ms. Permilli spoke, and Ms. Barocas and myself were in attendance, so I just wanted to kind of give a highlight of what we heard. Ms. Permilli spoke and gave insights on areas that could be reformed within S2 funding, such as differentiation, between districts to account for their individual needs. There are many districts in attendance: Old Bridge, Plumstead, South Brunswick, Cape May County, Lacey, Monroe. That was just a few. Majority of them were S2 affected this past school year. There was also some statewide advocacy groups, such as like PTNs and New Jersey State Business Administrator groups. Ideas that were suggested, because the Department of Education held this hearing to say, like, they didn't want to hear your sob story, but they wanted to know, do you have any suggestions for how S2 could be changed to benefit each district? So essentially, some of the ideas that these speakers had suggested was leaving the top 1% of earners off of any district's local fair share, because it skews the number, especially when you have a lottery ticket winner. Funding non-public transportation in districts with high non-public to public student ratio, fully funding multi-language learner education, funding just to adequacy, funding security 100%, sharing the formula so districts could prepare in advance of knowing what state aid might actually be rather than guessing on the back end, having a rolling property value of over 5 years, which would allow the district to have more continuity of how much they could expect year over. Some were even talking about going above the 2% tax cap levy every year, and bringing back old aid calculations for special education costs. Districts such as Newark and Lakewood were there, and they pointed out that there is a large amount of funds mandated for charter schools and non-public students, and it's hard to manage under S2. It was really interesting. Most districts there had a revenue problem. Towns, I can't tell you, I didn't take copious notes, and I asked Allison if she remembered exactly, but some towns, they couldn't purchase toilet paper this coming month. They were laying off 14 staff members because they couldn't make payroll. Basically, it was just story after story about what will happen in the coming school year if the state didn't offer relief. Every one of these districts moved to a 9.9 tax levy, and they still had the same story. Some towns went for referendum to raise additional funds. The towns obviously did not support those additional fund increases, and more than one town that was present closed the school. The Department of Education was there. They were taking copious notes, and supposedly time will tell if they'll make changes and what ideas will come back to them and what they'll bring to state legislators. So it was definitely an eye-opening experience, and we were represented there, and we'll continue to do that with the Advocacy Committee. Continue on? Okay, I guess. I need a motion for the approval of the minutes.
Motion.
The closed session meeting, December 11th, 2024. The official board meeting, December 11, 2024, business meeting. Discussion? Oh, I need a second.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Osmond,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. McCarron,
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera,
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas.
Yes.
Mrs. Gardella.
Yes. Financial reports, I need a motion for the approval of a bill list.
Motion. Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Osmond,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. McCarron,
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera,
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas,
Yes.
Mrs. Gardella.
Yes. I need a motion for the approval of the treasurer's and board secretary's reports.
Motion. Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Osmond,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. McCarron,
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera,
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas,
Yes.
Mrs. Gardella.
Yes. I need a motion to open the public forum on agenda items only. We will hold another public forum during the meeting for other questions. This public forum will be for questions on the agenda only. I know many of you are here for the redistricting, as Ms. Permilli said, so we will take those public comments in the second session. So this is related to the agenda only. Thank you.
Motion.
Second.
Please sign in and state your name, whether or not you're a Jackson resident. Each person is allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. No person may speak more than once on the topic until all others have been heard. Sure. Mr. Baginski will be keeping a clock.
Yeah, so for the
everybody.
public forum tonight, we have a large crowd, especially for the second public forum. I'll be keeping time, and I will signal to you when you have 20 seconds left.
How long do I wait? Okay. I start with the green. Okay. Motion to close the first public forum.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? All right, we're going to go to resolutions for action. I need a motion to move finance.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Osmond,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. McCarron,
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera,
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas, Mrs. Gardella.
Yes. I need a motion to move facilities.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Osmond,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. McCarron,
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera,
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas,
Yes.
Mrs. Gardella.
Yes. I need a motion to move programs.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion?
Number 5. Okay. What are the meanings of those values in that chart? CUSAC? So, I mean, is there any type of meaning to those numbers, or?
I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Rotante. He's been working on the instruction and curriculum portion of the CUSAC.
Yeah, the Department of Ed puts out a rubric for, they assign different values to your growth, your scores, absenteeism, graduation rates. They put a standard formula basically for each of those categories. The new equivalency application that they allow us to apply for changes the weightings on some of those to be in the district's favor. So we would end up with a higher score than on the initial rates. We would pass either way. We just pass with a higher score with the equivalency application.
Do we get to choose our score?
Well, we're going to apply to the Department of Ed with the application, and then if they approve our application, then that's how our scores will be weighted on the new application.
Okay.
The reason for the choice this year, obviously, we never have had choice before, which method we want to use, is because of the feedback that the State Department of Education received from school districts about how the calculations were occurring and how they didn't account for certain things. And so this is in response to those concerns from other schools, and they're making this change for next year's CUSAC. So they're saying to this year's school districts that are being CUSAC'd that you have an option to use the new way that will start next school year or to use the existing way. That's why next year there won't be a choice for cohorts.
Good? Roll call.
Dr. Osmond,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. McCarron,
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera,
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas, Mrs. Gardella.
Abstain from number 9-2. Yes to everything else. I need a motion to move students.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Osmond,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. McCarron,
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera,
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas,
Yes.
Mrs. Gardella.
Yes. I need a motion to move personnel.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Osmond,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. McCarron,
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera,
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas,
Yes.
Mrs. Gardella.
Yes. At this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Permilli for her superintendent's report on the strategic redistricting and restructuring update and recommendations.
Thank you. So tonight, we will share an update on the progress and the recommendations for the districting, the district's redistricting, restructuring, strategic planning, better known as the SRRP work that we've been doing since the beginning of the school year. I have Mr. Baginski, the business administrator, Mr. Vitante, assistant superintendent of the elementary level, and Dr. Godleski, assistant superintendent of the secondary level, who will assist with the presentation tonight. Board members, there are slides behind you, if you may want to turn around to view them. So before we begin and get into the work of the committee and the why, we'll start with the why tonight. I just want to comment that, I've said this before, this is not something that any superintendent, Board of Education, administration really wants to do in a district. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of emotion, it's a lot of change. Tonight, I hope that you can better understand why we're moving in this direction. We recognize that this is difficult, that change is difficult. Change is never easy, but we respect the fact that these decisions impact people, our students, our staff, and our community. And we've had many sleepless nights. And as you hear through the evening, the process that the committee took has considered many factors, multiple factors in the decision, trying to consider every possible avenue and area so that we can provide a recommendation that we feel is going to benefit all of our students in this district and provide a direction forward for the future for the sustainability of an excellent school district. So this evening, we'll start with the why. And as we've said multiple times, we all want strong programs for all of our students. We want timely curriculum updates that we haven't been able to do over the last 8 years. We want to keep and expand AP offerings, academies. We want to have robust electives. We want strong supports for all of our students, intervention, enrichment. We want to have up-to-date supplies, have all the supplies that our teachers need and our students and technology. And we want to have strong opportunities for everybody when it comes to our co-curriculars. We're tired of losing things for students. I know you all are, we all are. And we're tired of the fiscal issue that was not created by this district, but we created for several factors. And through this process, we do this to make our district fiscally sustainable. And we have an opportunity to achieve that through this restructuring. So with that, why must we change? We've said this before, 2 major factors here are in consideration. We've had enrollment decreases. Enrollment has decreased over years, providing an opportunity to be more efficient, cost-saving, and to lower operational costs. Our cohorts have come in at lower numbers of students, lower than the number of students that we are graduating out. For example, this year alone, we graduated out more students than we received in our kindergarten level, which was actually 346 students less than who we graduated out. And that's been happening for several years. So students leaving is a higher cohort than the students coming in kindergarten, and as you can imagine, those cohorts make their way through each grade level. We also have budget deficits. We are super grateful for all the advocating that our parents have done, our staff have done, and our legislators to help with this state aid funding formula that has been a nightmare for Jackson. And although we are very appreciative of all of that, we don't have any hope of anything changing. It's been 7 years and there has been no change. And so we need to take that control into our hands, and we will not even receive our state aid numbers until late February. But with that, we are looking at what will our possible deficit be if we don't do anything to impact the loss. And with that, we are anticipating, just roughly through our estimates right now, a $13 million deficit for the 25-26 school year. And as you can imagine, that is significant and would mean a tremendous amount of cuts.
So the deficit of a $13 million deficit, when you think about it, last year at the same time, we were at a $32 million deficit when we rolled everything over. So to play off of the auditor tonight, it's kind of ironic that the auditor was here to describe a district that is very fiscally well managed, but that has been the case for our school district. We have a very singular issue here, and it's already been mentioned a couple of times. It's a revenue issue. And the slide that you see up on the screen illustrates what is the byproduct of a very disproportionate reduction in state aid over the 7 years of S2, especially when you look at it versus our enrollment decrease. The enrollment decrease during that 7-year period was close to 1,300 students, which is 15.6% decrease in enrollment. At that same time, during that same time period, and as mandated by the S2 legislation, our categorical state aid dropped from $49 million to $23 million per year, a 52.9% reduction. Does that seem fair? For comparative purposes, on the right column, you can see what an aid reduction would have looked like if the aid had been reduced by the enrollment decreases themselves. The difference is stark, close to $55 million over the entire 7-year S2 era, and this, very specifically, is why we are where we are today. Despite the work of our local legislators, our plight has seemingly fallen on deaf ears at the state level. The disparity between enrollment and the categorical state aid has forced the district to continually employ a cut model year after year, just to stay afloat. These cuts during that time period have included 285 position eliminations, the postponement of facilities and curriculum improvements, the combining of sports programs, and the reduction of transportation of after-school programs, not to mention everything else. The cut model reached its limit last spring when we actually took very significant measures to close and sell the Rosenauer Elementary School property, which closed the budget deficit for this current school year. Onto the revenue side, to take a look at what we're projecting for, and this is not a budget presentation. The budget will be tentatively introduced at the March board meeting, but obviously this is something that is a very, very important part of what we do every day. On the revenue side, we're looking at budget projections that are going to be a 15% reduction in equalization aid. And this is what the county officials and the state officials have told us to prepare for. For us, that includes a projected decrease of $2.5 million in state aid for a school district that has already lost, as you saw in the previous slide, year after year after year. And unlike previous years, we are planning to receive no state stabilization aid, which most recently brought $2 million into our budget this year. And we must also factor in one-time revenues that we availed ourselves of this year that included the land sales and also the state's inclusion of $2.5 million in infrastructure funds that came in on June 30th. So these one-time revenues, as good as they are for this year's budget, they create challenges for future budgets. We also are returning to the 2% annual tax levy increase set forth by the state, which will bring our maximum tax levy increase to just over $2 million. This is far different than the tax levy increase, the one-time only one that the state legislation passed for last year, which included a $9.2 million tax levy increase in 1 year. So it's not just revenues. Like any other school district, and Mrs. Gardella was talking about how other school districts are falling into the same place we are. And,
The expense side is not without its challenges. We are currently building a budget with some very significant increases in the instructional support costs that we have very little control over. They include increases to utilities, special education out-of-district tuition. That is, these out-of-district placement schools actually set tuition that is higher than the 2% cap. And then obviously transporting our students and our non-public students with aid in lieu payments, insurance premiums. For next year, we're anticipating a 10% increase in health insurance premiums. That equates for us to be over $2 million. It actually equates to larger than the tax levy increase that we're allowed to make by law. So altogether, we're anticipating a $6.4 million increase in instructional support costs. For direct instructional costs, we've aggressively negotiated contracts to be at or below county or state averages, and yet it's not enough. We're still facing an increase of over $2 million just to roll over the staff and the salaries that we have for this year to next year. So all of these increases are in the context of a world that is just, simply to say, more expensive. You know what inflation has been over the last 3 years. We're talking about some of the highest inflation that this country has ever seen, this region has ever seen, and we're anticipating that to continue. And this past year, we were at a 3.4% inflation rate. So we've done all of this expense-wise, and we've put the bare minimum to maintaining our facilities. And we are a big school district. We're maintaining a large number of schools, 2 transportation depots. So we have had to postpone and punt on many of those projects because simply we're paying for other things. We're paying to just keep the lights on. So what is the path forward for the Jackson School District to become financially sustainable? And I will tell you that there is no greater importance from my office and from me personally than to make sure that this school district is financially sustainable. It's an obsession. It's something that is, I don't want to say a singular focus because we all have large oversight, but it is a primary focus of this school district. And it started already with the balancing of this year's budget. So the sale of the Rosenauer School has put us in a place where we are projected to finish this year with a positive cash flow. However, this does not necessarily translate to next year, okay? And the potential sale or rental of another school property and the potential revenue that could bring in and permanently reducing our operating expenses. And that is really one of the key factors here with the redistricting and restructuring plan is we have to bring down these operating costs to a level that matches our revenue so that we can be in a place where we can just sustain and continue and to build like a school district should. And lastly, the school funding formula is currently under review. Mrs. Gardella said, I testified at the state level. Ms. Permilli testified at the state level last week. It's under review, and we can only hope that this will bring forth a more logical or reasonable change to the disproportionate funding that we've already received. So for those who may be in the audience who are doubting whether we should be restructuring, the last slide, I really need you to think about what the alternatives would be. And $13 million deficit is a large deficit. So if the choice, and doing nothing is a choice, if we were not going to do anything to address that from redistricting or restructuring, we would be looking at another spring of clinging to hope that the state's going to ride in on a white horse and solve this situation for us, and we know how that played out last spring. Or keep this cut model going and keep cutting and eliminating positions and programs and stripping resources from students and staff members. So both of those pathways are not necessarily the most palatable paths in our future, and that's why we are where we are tonight, and we're looking at an aggressive redistricting, restructuring plan that could put this entire school district on a path to sustainability.
Thank you, Mr. Baginski. So I think that paints a pretty clear picture of the why. I'd like to go into now the process of making these decisions. And so actually 5 years ago, the board made and formed a board enrollment committee to review enrollment every year. And the board committee, the subcommittee met several times over those last 5 years to keep an eye on enrollment, watch for trends in enrollment. When might it be a time where we have to look at redistricting? And I do believe we have moved to that time for several reasons based on enrollment and our fiscal situation that Mr. Baginski just outlined. This committee was also part of the Redistricting and Restructuring Committee. So that board enrollment committee sat on the SRRP committee. This year, one of the district goals and the board goals was to set and embark upon the strategic planning, redistricting, and restructuring planning. And as part of that goal, the SRRP committee was formed, and it was made up of equal representation of administrators, teachers and staff, and parents. This committee included, as I said earlier, the board subcommittee, and they met for 4 months, several meetings each month, hours upon hours long. They did intense hard work, and I just want to take a moment to recognize them. It was incredibly important work. Everybody came to the table with an open mind, ready to tackle every challenge and task, formulating a framework for the future for this school district to be sustainable and to be strong for our students. There were absolutely no shy voices in the room. Each member advocated strongly to ensure all perspectives were heard, and what were the benefits and the consequences of every option that was presented. So I just want to say thank you to all of you on that committee. It was an incredible amount of work, intense at times, and again, thank you for that. So I have shown this slide before. This is the purpose and the role of the committee, was to review data and other information presented, identify priorities, provide perspective and input, and act as a think tank to address the challenges that were in front of us, and to also help the administration make recommendations to the Board of Education for the future of the district. There was a priority list that was created. These were some of the things on that priority list, things to consider as we worked through the process. Some of these things would be moved to the top of the list and then shifted back down, and moving from time to time, depending on the situation and the considerations and other information that was shared. So you can see there, I won't read them all to you, but obviously equitable courses and program opportunities for all our students, making sure that we're thinking long-term, not just short-term for our restructuring plan, and making sure that there are equitable opportunities across the district. At every meeting, we reminded ourselves by looking at this slide of the results of the community that the community sent to us through the survey results. This was a survey sent out in early fall, asking people to comment about what is the most important outcomes you would like to see from a restructuring plan. And as you can see, the 3 main ones were maintaining programs and academic supports for our students, equitable class sizes throughout the district for all, and creating a district that is financially stable. And so these were reviewed at every meeting to keep us focused on what we knew our community felt was important as outcomes of this planning. Throughout the process of every meeting, there were certain meetings where we came to a place of consensus. This slide outlines, I've shared some of this at previous board meetings, but I just want to note right here that at the November meeting, meeting number 4, a consensus was reached to narrow 8 options, we'll look at those in a moment, down to 4 options for our school models that allowed us to achieve a goal of consolidating one school, consolidating schools and being able to close a middle school, which then would lower our operational costs. At the December meeting, meeting number 5, consensus was reached that we cannot pursue a 10 through 12 high school configuration. We had spent a lot of time looking at that. Would it be more feasible? Would it be better for our students? But decided that that was not something that this district should move forward with. There was not a lot of models in the state, other school districts that had this, and felt that they would not have enough time to really research and do it well. So that came off the plate. Then leading us to a consensus that was reached now to narrow to 2 models. At our meeting number 6, consensus was reached from those 2 models to 1 model. Also at that meeting, we finished our high school tours, discussed the benefits and challenges to each of our high school facilities, and we reviewed the mission statement and core beliefs. And at every meeting that we were able to, we shared any of the concerns that came to us via email or phone calls. So the community concerns, as we tried to respond to all of them that came in, that your concerns or suggestions or thoughts were shared with the committee, they were. They were read to the committee, and they were also shared with the board, the full board. So just to put a little visual behind what I just said, in October, we had started with 6 models that we presented to the committee to review for possibility and analysis. Data was provided behind those models. The committee itself added 3 more models. So we ended up with 8 models that we analyzed carefully. I just want to note here for you, the yellow model, the 4B, was actually created by the committee, was a hybrid of the original 4. And so the committee spent a long time looking at these models and looking at data behind these models and discussing them and reviewing them against our criteria. As I mentioned, at meeting 4, narrowed those models, those 8 down to 4, eliminating models that did not allow for keeping cohorts of students together. It was clear through the survey results that our community felt it important that our students stay together, that we don't redraw lines and move and shift students away from each other who have been together for years. So that eliminated right away certain models that would require redrawing of sending areas for our schools. So you'll see here that it got narrowed down to 4 for that purpose. We spent a lot of time looking at a possible model, for example, of a 7-12 model that would have kept 2 7-12 schools. That was eliminated, recognizing that it would have to require redrawing of lines because we would have unequitable availability of programs with a larger number of students in one school and a smaller number of students in another school. It's very difficult to run 2 programs that are equitable when you don't have the same number of students to fill seats for classes or electives or extracurriculars. It also does not narrow or down our operating costs if we're trying to run 2 of everything. So therefore, that model was removed. Narrowed down at meeting number 5 to 2 models. You'll see here the 2 models, and this was the last board update and public update I had provided, that we were down to 2 models. And at the next meeting, they do narrow down to 1. So after reviewing the high school areas, the attention then got turned to these 2 models, to our pre-K-8 portion of these models, and analyzing those deeply to consider what would be the best model selected. And so this evening, we are presenting committee consensus on the model of number 4B, the yellow model, which now the committee narrowed down to 1, which consists of a pre-K 4 for our elementary schools. Again, recognizing that this will not change any sending area lines for students, allowing our students to currently stay with their cohort of students. Creating a 5-6 school, creating a 7-8 school, and creating a 9-12 one comprehensive high school. We'll go into more detail as we move forward. That model, I just want to show you some of the data behind the model that was considered. And you'll see some numbers here. I know it's a lot to look at, but give me a few minutes to walk you through it. Reminder of what I said earlier about our enrollment trends, right? So what you see here is the enrollment trends, and we took those enrollment trends from our current numbers and rolled them through the grade levels for 3 years and 5 years. And you can see to the right there some of the trends that we've seen since 2020, the difference, the number of student difference in those enrollment trends. So this is a very conservative estimate that we used because it's taking our existing cohorts and rolling them through the grade levels, not anticipating any other enrollment decreases we may get. So we felt it was good to stay at a flat enrollment rate based on the current cohorts we have. And that's how we took those enrollment numbers through 3 years and 5 years. You can see through that, rolling out the current existing enrollment, in 5 years, If that stays flat and those cohorts make their way through the grade levels, we're looking at an estimated 1,135 decrease in our enrollment. This model can support that, and we'll talk a little bit more about what else the model can support. I want to note here that the asterisk, the first asterisk, represents one additional preschool class of 15 students. They're capped at 15 students for those schools. We're required to meet a certain universe, they call it the universe, with the additional state aid we get for preschool. We believe we still will have some increases in that universe for the next year or two. After that, I believe we will run flat as well. Therefore, you see that we have plans next year to add one additional preschool there. We currently have the preschool annex here at Memorial High School. It's a hallway of our preschool students. Fabulous program here for our students, for our preschoolers. We're not planning on adding any additional preschool there currently, and I'll explain a little bit more down the road, but basically that's to help us for any overflow that we may need. If we have additional preschool space needed, we'll have that space at the annex, and therefore not affecting more space within the elementary schools. Okay, I think I covered everything on that slide. So as I mentioned, this model was introduced by the committee members themselves, and we spent a lot of time analyzing it using the data that I just shared with you. It does preserve the sending boundaries for our elementary schools. It respects the feedback we got from our community. It keeps our cohorts of students together for middle school and high school, again, not breaking up those cohorts and sending them to different locations. It's mindful of the developmental needs of students. Working with 5th graders and 6th graders, they are more alike than our 6th graders, our 7th and 8th graders. So it does respect that developmental age group. It works with our transportation tiers that we'll look at in a little bit, and respects the concerns about the time spent on the bus. As Mr. Baginski mentioned, we must lower our operational costs. We have an estimate here. Again, once everything rolls out, we'll have a better figure, but it's an estimate of saving, permanently saving $8 million with this model by consolidating and closing another building. Plus, it does create the potential of closing another building for either renting it for revenue or selling it for revenue. And most importantly, it allows for equity of our programs and maintaining our programs, our co-curriculars for all of our students. And it unifies the district, obviously creating one Jackson School District.
Okay, so there's several benefits to all of the different levels, beginning with our elementary schools. Moving 5th grade out of the elementary school is going to provide much needed space at the schools right now. With the trailers being eliminated, we definitely have some very crowded situations, especially in a couple of our schools. And removing the 5th grade gives us the extra space to make sure there's room for all levels of instruction, including not just whole class, but small group. Also, special area classes like art and music will be able to be moved into classrooms, which provides really a much better learning space and more optimal instructional space for that kind of instruction. And as has been mentioned several times, the elementary plan does not change the sending zones. Very clear from our surveys and our feedback that will allow students in the elementary level to remain with their friends in their schools. The 5-6 building would be an upper elementary school approach. It would be a new approach for our district, but keeping this age group together will be a much slower transition into middle school. We'll be able to use a team teaching approach as well for our students, which would be very beneficial to get used to the idea of changing teachers, but not be in a full middle school or high school approach. This school setup will also allow us to introduce additional opportunities for students such as intramurals and clubs. On the 5th grade level, we'll be able to bring back instrumental music, something we have not had in our 5th grades for many, many years, and allow us to create 5th and 6th grade bands, 5th and 6th grade choruses that can really help build stronger programs for the upper grades. Going to the middle school, our 7-8 model, again, several benefits there as well. Combining our students will provide a lot more opportunities for equitable courses and clubs. And by utilizing one of our high school campuses as a 7-8 building, the students will have access to additional fields, courts, gyms, a lot of extracurricular space, room and situations that are much better suited for a lot of those extra things that are not available right now on the middle school level. And again, as has been said many times, the 7-8 school unifying all our students at that level will really help our district as they're unified in middle school going into high school together. And then, of course, our high school, the benefits on the high school level, which are tremendous. By combining, we can really keep all of our programs very strong. Our academy programs, our junior ROTC right now, which is only located at one building, and students from the other school do need to be bussed over if they're part of it. It would allow all students to have equal access to being part of that, which would hopefully increase our enrollment in that program. Having more students will really provide more scheduling opportunities, more options for classes. With our block schedule, a lot of times there's singleton classes where there's only one section offered during the whole school year, and students often have conflicts and might have to choose between one or two courses that they really take. Having additional courses, additional staff would allow us to provide more opportunities and hopefully limit the amount of conflicts students have with their schedules. We'd be able to keep and expand our AP, our honors classes and electives. And in the world of athletics, the increase will really provide opportunities to expand our JV and also offer freshman teams, which is something that we really have not been able to do in many of our sports for several years due to enrollment, due to interest. Having both schools together can really help build our athletic program on all levels from freshman through JV and varsity. And then again, most importantly, has been reiterated several times, it really does unify us to be one Jackson, one school.
Thank you, Mr. Atante. Looking to the future, this plan is flexible for enrollment shifts, whether they're increases or decreases. That was important to the committee to ensure that was possible either way. Even with flat kindergarten enrollment, as I mentioned earlier, as the cohorts move through, the grades will experience elementary decline. So we have room to, if there are some buildings, we've been keeping an eye on all of this construction that is planned for Jackson. We recognize, you see some of them listed that are up there on the screen. We have allowed for growth if need be in this plan, and also if we continue to decline in enrollment. Now, it is hard to predict when that construction will actually be built. It's also hard to predict how many public school children will come out of those developments as well. But we wanted to prepare a plan that would allow for either increase or decrease in enrollment, and we believe this model does that. We also, as I had mentioned earlier, about keeping the preschool annex flat right now, it allows us the opportunity to ensure that the priority in the elementary schools is for kindergarten through fourth graders to have adequate space available in their buildings, so that if we need to, we can move a preschool classroom into the annex, providing more space and opportunity within the elementary school for the other grade level students. So moving on to the very next difficult decision and recommendation that needs to be made is the recommendation of how to use the facilities and what facility we will look at to close. This decision was obviously not taken lightly, was hours and hours and days and months of consideration, lots of factors considered and weighed. Not easy, and we really spent a lot of time in discussion and figuring out what would be the best use of our facilities for our students across the entire district. And so with that, the recommendation for the board to consider that aligns to the model that the committee is suggesting for grade spans, that Getz Middle School will be closed and sold or rented to lower our operating costs, that we utilize McCullough Middle School as our one upper elementary school to house 5th and 6th graders, and that we utilize the Jackson Memorial School as one middle school for our 7th and 8th graders and our preschool annex, and that we utilize the Jackson Liberty as our one high school for our 9th through 12th graders. All schools that we've selected have room for students instructionally, The decision to utilize McAuliffe as an upper elementary and to close Getz is based on the ages of the schools, the 2 middle schools, and the architect's analysis. For those of you who recall, Getz was built as an open space school. It has metal walls that were put in to make individual classrooms, and our architect has said to bring that up to 21st century learning would be most fiscally responsible to actually tear it down and rebuild it. So that was a major factor in that decision. Liberty was designed and built as a state-of-the-art high school, meeting all of the needs for space inside and out. It does not mean that any one of our high schools is not good. Both of our high schools are wonderful schools. It just provides a more high school focus for some of the concerns, for example, of parking for our students, our staff, our visitors, large hallways for transition time between classes, and the outdoor campus itself. Memorial can better function as the middle school, the annex for the preschool, and in the past, the Clayton Wing actually was a middle school. It was built for that. I recognize that this decision is a recommendation and is something that is a very emotional decision and an emotional moment for many people. We recognize that, and we will address and work through all of our challenges of uniting our staff and our students to ensure that we become one united place. Please know that's not going to change the wonderful teaching of our wonderful teachers that happen in our buildings. We still will have our same teachers, we'll still have our same students. It's the facility that's different. And the facility for some of us will be different, some of it will be the same, but we want to come together as one Jackson. More on that a little bit later in the presentation. The tiers for busing, we wanted to ensure that everybody understood the recommendations for next year's school start times and the tiers for busing. So the high school will remain on Tier 1. As it currently does, it does also provide the time of Tier 1 is less congested on our roads for around Liberty, so we will continue to keep our high school functioning on Tier 1. Tier 2 will remain the same for the middle school, a 7th, 8th middle school, but in addition, it does move 2 of our elementary schools to Tier 2, an 810 to 220 day. It was important for us to break up the Crawford-Johnson tiers as they share the same bus ramp, and it's very complicated. Those of you who work there, those parents who are there on the drop-off and pickup line recognize that, and so we have moved that up to Tier 2. Tier 3 is a recommendation for the 5-6 building to operate on Tier 3 and the remaining elementary schools of Crawford, Elms, and Switlick, as well as the preschool annex. This recommendation allows for the best use of all of our buses and our drivers and not overburdening one of our tiers. We've been through a lot through transportation over the years with the lack of drivers and just running into issues with buses being backed up because one tier was more overburdened than another tier. This spreads out the tiers more evenly, allowing for smoother times and less delays. So as I mentioned earlier, we have been keeping track of the questions that come to board meeting, that parents have brought to board meetings, the public have brought to board meetings, and our staff, any emails we've received with questions. We have been keeping track of those, and we have a Q&A document that we have started, and Ms. Irwin will push that Q&A document out tomorrow to our community and our staff so that you can see some of the answers that we've already provided. Please know this is a work in progress, and we will continue to add to that list and answer questions when it's appropriate. Some decisions we're not ready to make yet until there is a final decision and a board vote. But I just want to highlight, for example, just a few of the things tonight in that Q&A document that we've heard. Will the total bus time for students traveling from one side of town to the other be kept at a maximum number for minutes? That's a big concern for our parents, and we recognize that. And so transportation travel times were a big factor in our decision-making and our analysis, and working with the transportation department, they work to keep bus runs under 50 minutes or less. That's the threshold to start with, and then they work, after our software pushes that information out, then they work to lower those times by combining routes, shifting things around. So we'll continue to do that and try to get that even lower, but that's the minimum that we set, the max that we set as we move forward and plan. Will there be moving up ceremonies for fourth graders this year? Yes, and that is going to be planned by school administrators. What about the opportunity for fifth grade to have safeties? Yes, we anticipate this spring there'll be some time for safeties to participate. We also hope that in the 5-6 building there'll be some opportunity for a safety role that's developed in a more appropriate age level way. Have we considered converting 1 or 2 of our elementary schools into preschools, as other districts have? Yes, we did. We did talk about that. This was discussed. This was a model that was not selected, as it requires the redrawing of the sending lines for most of the schools then to do that. All of your elementary schools would have new sending area lines to do that. And probably also true for our middle school and 5-6 building. And as a side note, having preschool in our buildings helps our budget, because it is state aid that we receive for our preschoolers that can be applied to our buildings that they are housed in. We've had some questions about GPA, class rank, and NJ stars. The way that the GPA is calculated will not change. That's a mathematical calculation. The work done by students will be reflected accordingly in a GPA. And I just want to note here that when colleges review the transcripts, they are looking at the rigor of coursework and the size of the school. Those two things are heavily weighted as colleges look at transcripts. And it's a mathematical calculation. Class rank, anytime a larger cohort is used, it could impact where students are in comparison to the peers. And that's truthful. NJ stars, again, yes, you're bringing students together. It's a larger cohort. It could impact some number of students, but the criteria doesn't change. It's still 15% of the total number that's used for NJ stars. And it's just, when you bring a larger cohort together, that's what's going to happen. Traffic congestion is a concern on the Liberty side of town. Has it been considered by the committee? Absolutely. The traffic has been considered, and having, as I mentioned earlier, the high school in Tier 1 addresses some of that concern, not all of it, but some. Tier 1 is less of a congested time. There is also a traffic flow plan that both our high schools have, and Liberty will have a plan as well that helps, because there's multiple entrances and exits, easier able to control the flow of who's going in certain ways and who's coming out certain ways to help with that congestion. We certainly will also continue to ramp up our driver education program and requirements for students when they go for their permit to drive and on our campus. So next steps. What will be next after this final decision is made by the Board of Education? As a reminder, tonight, after the board has an opportunity to comment and ask questions, there is a public forum for all of you to come forward and share your concerns and questions. There is a specific meeting that we arranged on Wednesday, February 5th, again, for this purpose, for a second public forum on this topic for our community to speak and present their concerns as well. That meeting is a sole focus on this plan, and we hope that the board will vote on that evening as well at 6 p.m. here. Additional next steps.
Okay, our administrative team this evening has presented the best work and outcomes of the restructuring committee to date. While that collaborative work brings us to this recommendation, after the Board of Education votes on a restructuring plan, new work will need to quickly commence. As we've discussed, our financial situation doesn't offer us the luxury of time in this regard. So I want to take a few minutes to share a broad scope overview of what some of those action steps will be. Collaboratively, we'll be creating schedules for the new 5-6 school that maintain the goals of an upper elementary school, including, among other things, recess and team teaching. Also, we'll be working to create a new middle school schedule for our 7-8 school, which will have the potential for expanded electives possible when all of our district's 7th and 8th graders are in one building. Voice is incredibly important throughout this change process. We'll be surveying staff about requests for placement. While we'll always prioritize what's best for our students, our goal will be to accommodate requests when possible. We'll determine the need for coaching staff as well as extracurricular advisors and a protocol for hiring. For all positions, we'll create and share a timeline so that staff are informed at the earliest possible date of their assignments for the 25-26 school year. We know that change can be difficult, and communication is an incredibly important component to facilitate change. We'll oversee the various technology needs and shifts that need to occur in each of these schools and create a timeline for movement for staff as well as instructional and curricular supplies. Culture and climate are also incredibly important during this district transition. We'll aim to create stakeholder committees, including students, to plan activities, events, and opportunities for our students and staff to join together to unify our schools. We'll want to get started with these activities prior to the end of the 24-25 school year. Lastly, the Jackson School Districts and its schools have a rich history of traditions. As we merge middle and high schools, a committee will work to honor and represent a collaboration of the traditions at each individual school through rebranding and unifying one Jackson. While these changes are vast for our district, there's an incredibly exciting time for all of us to be a part of this change. It has to be our combined mission to unite our students, staff, and community.
We obviously recognize that these changes, there will be some challenges along the way, but as this district has done and this staff has done over the past 7 years, we will work through them together for the benefit of our students. That's why we are all here, for the benefit of our students, and we believe these recommendations are in the best interest of moving this district forward, honoring the past, and building a new future to our school district. Making these hard choices now allows us to preserve the programs that make this an outstanding school district. And it is an outstanding school district with offerings for students in every which way of what they're interested in, and we need to keep those things. And if we don't do this, we won't be able to keep those things. We have the opportunity to come together to create one Jackson school system that is united. Change can be difficult, but can also be good and exciting, and I hope that we can come together to make this an exciting time for our students. With that, I conclude the presentation and turn it over to the board for comments and questions.
Do I have to say anything, or can I just start? I'll open it for discussion by the board. Does that mean I can start, or does someone want to start? I just want to know, when the recommendations, is anybody able to tell me how many students from Switlick, Elms, and Johnson are in the 5th, 6th compared to Crawford and Holman? Sorry. The students, like how many students at Switlick, Elms, and Johnson versus how many students at Crawford and Holman are going to be 5th and 6th graders next year?
I can get you those numbers.
Okay. Okay.
I will answer that publicly once I can get them to you. I don't have them in front of me right this moment.
Do you know if there are more fields at either elementary school for recess time?
Are there fields at every elementary school? Is that what you're asking?
At the middle schools?
Oh, at the middle schools.
Between the 2 middle schools, is there one
Oh,
with
no.
more fields for recess time?
Getz would have
versus the
more,
other?
yes, Getz would have more fields. McAuliffe has it's a fit obstacle course. Project Fit, I believe is the name of it. So that's established in the back part of the front parking lot. So there's a front parking lot, There are some areas behind the back of the school, but not per se fields.
You mentioned, not necessarily you, but the presentation mentioned the engineer report for the facility at Getz requiring a full tear down for it to be a state of, bringing up to the 21st century teaching standards for a middle school. And when you're discussing a 5-6 being an upper elementary school, would the same recommendations for facility upgrades be, I don't know the correct word that I'm looking for, mandatory or necessary?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So I would say yes, because, you know, you're looking at a school that was not built with the intention to have single classrooms. It's, you know, over the years, you know, administration through the years have put up the walls. So there are classrooms, but they are, you can hear through them. And there are certain updates. You have sinks that are in the hallway for the bathrooms. The bathrooms need updated. That would not change. So what's best instructionally for students would be a McAuliffe type setup.
Now, looking at the enrollment numbers, I just like jotted them down and then I was going to take my calculator out. But essentially, if we're looking at a 5-year with just flat enrollment, no ups or downs, right? In 5 years, you're going to be down about the same number of students that you'll be down pre-K to 4 versus 5-6. So what would that look like at that 5-year mark?
So again, we don't have a crystal ball. These are estimates, but if enrollment continued to drop this model down the road, maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 7 years, maybe it's longer. If enrollment continues to drop, that I would suggest, and I don't know what it will be then and whatnot, but you have the opportunity then to move 5th grade back to elementary and 6th grade into a middle school model if you needed to consolidate.
I don't want to take over, but I had a few questions. I don't know if someone wants to like jump in.
I have.
You want to go ahead, Erica?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So one of my questions is, can the state require us to have to choose to sell one of those middle schools, or is it our choice, we vote on selling or renting, or is there like a situation where they go, you know, we're overriding you, you have to sell?
So the first thing I would say, that's going to be dependent on our state aid numbers and our budget situation, on whether we would recommend selling or bringing in continued revenue through renting, right? So that's going to depend on our budget numbers as they come in. I would guess, but I will ask Ms. Morris to help me with this, is if we were in a budget deficit that could not be closed by renting, I think that they would make us sell. That would be my guess. Would that be pretty accurate?
You have to have a balanced budget presented to the state. So
In order to
have it approved.
Okay. So I guess what doesn't make sense to me, maybe you can answer this, is if you choose to sell, that will help in the very short term. And then we're right back where we are, where renting is revenue. You know, schools that have a really hard time, other than like lunch, where do you get your revenue, right? So my question, I guess, you know, do you advocate for us? Do you tell the state, like, you know, yeah, they could sell, but it's not helping anything?
You mean now, or I know you were talking about 5 years from now. You're talking about now.
I'm talking about now because we are deciding, okay, so one of the things I want to say for the audience members here, because, you know, I live in the community and people ask me some questions. And one of the things that I want people to understand today is that what we just saw is a recommendation from the committee. But the committee is not your Board of Ed. Your Board of Ed ultimately has to vote, okay? Not saying that we don't appreciate everything that the committee did, but right now, we're looking at which school we should vote for. Should we keep Getz or should we keep McAuliffe? So one of the things that I would like to see, because I think we should rent and not sell so that we have revenue. But I would like to see like numbers from a realtor that says how much money can we get in rental from McAuliffe versus Getz, so that when we are voting on that, we kind of have an idea of which one could keep us out of this hole better. Does that make sense? I don't know if that made sense. Did that make sense? Okay.
I don't see any reason that you cannot ask a realtor to do that if that's what the board wants to look at and have. I don't know if they can provide you with that kind of a figure. If you're asking, and as I understand it now, you're asking for an estimate from a realtor as to what kind of revenue renting it would bring in.
Right, but
As opposed to selling.
yeah, but also if we can earn money through renting, would this, would the state support that instead of selling? I mean, ultimately, right now, we could vote on anything and you can override us, so.
Well, I think we'd have to look at the entire proposal. Your superintendent and committee that has been working on this has a presentation, obviously, that they're making tonight, and to you as a full board, that represents everything they've looked at, and I don't think anybody could accuse the committee of not having looked at everything possible as far as the options are concerned. But until the board makes a decision, obviously it will be your decision on the agenda to support the superintendent and committee's recommendation or not. At this point in time, the state's interest is seeing that you have taken the steps that are necessary to generate revenue for your district that can sustain the kinds of programs and recommendations that have been made tonight. That's really what's online. In other words, it does become, it's a very difficult and emotional question, but it becomes a very, very easy one to explain, which has been explained tonight. You cannot spend and propose a budget for the district, no school district can in the state, that spends more than you have the revenue to support it. I mean, you can't get to the middle, the state is not going to permit you to get to the middle of a school year, and simply close the doors and say, we can't go anymore, we don't have any money. That's not the interest, certainly, of anybody. So at this point in time, in answer to your question, I don't know if that was a consideration of the committee to get an estimate on what you could rent it for or not, but I don't even know if that's available. That would be available from a realtor. I think you'd have to explore that.
We certainly will explore it. It's something that the administrative team talked about once we were closer to a recommendation. So we'll see what we can do.
Okay, I just have one more comment, just something for the audience to think about while you're sitting here. So soon it's going to be the open public session. So I'm guessing a lot of you came to speak during that time. And we don't vote until February. And so, I am hopeful that when people come up to the microphone tonight, that we're a little less emotional of, oh, we love this school, the teachers are great at this school. Nobody's debating that, right? But when you watched this presentation, did we miss something? Where's the gap in our thinking? Think about like the data. Let us know if you know that we're missing something, because we have to take this all in, we have to digest this, we have to discuss among ourselves, and then we have to vote on this in February. So don't be shy if you know, like, they're not thinking this. But again, that's not emotional stuff. I mean, you could say whatever you want when you're up there, but that's not emotional stuff. We need that, like, concrete data, okay? Thank you.
Yeah. You can go, yeah.
Are we concerned about transporting 600 kids across town to a middle school that only has a one-way in and a one-way out? With our buses, that now we have more children, and when those buses cannot make sometimes a left out of the one-way in and the one-way out.
Well, certainly. You know, we currently use that school, and they currently have buses coming in and out, staff and parents. In this case, a 5-6 school, we would have mostly bus traffic coming in and out. And again, we would hope that parents would put their children on the bus and maybe alleviate some of the drop-off and pickup. So with all of our buildings and all of our schools, all the schools that we use all of these schools currently, and so we try and strive to create the smoothest transportation plan we can. What we can't control is the traffic that is out of our hands based on what happens in a town. I think across all of New Jersey, we've seen increases in traffic, but of course, it was a factor to consider. And as I said earlier, lots of factors were considered and different weights provided for different reasons. And we would hope that we can create a plan that could be the best plan using that. But of course, always concern.
Yeah, I guess the concern that I had, just to put it out there, was moving everybody over onto one side of town that's already riddled with a considerable amount of traffic and accidents, and putting some of our newest drivers onto Hope Chapel Road that I try to avoid at all costs. So that's a concern for me. And having an increase of traffic on that side of town is something that I think we need to consider.
Do we have any idea of what staff cuts would be made?
Certainly, we've looked at that, but we're not in a position to be able to make those decisions and, you know, move that forward yet. Once we'll have a better idea, once a recommendation or not is approved, but we're not there yet. But we will, in this model, we believe we'll save about $8 million in operational costs.
How would you make these cuts? What would be your parameters for that?
It's a little early to be speaking about that until we have a better idea. But the same way that we always address any staff cuts, we've been doing, unfortunately, staff cuts for 7 years. And so we have a process that we work through, which is obviously looking at certs for certain things, and then obviously tenure versus non-tenure.
I want to piggyback on you, Mike. I had a couple little questions just at the beginning of the presentation, and I might sound out of order and go back, but I felt like when we talked about the staff reductions, it was kind of shocking at the number of cost savings. So can you speak on, will we actually be able to do the great things that we're talking about with elective sports, classes, with those reductions? And
Yeah, so that's the hope. You know, until we have numbers in front of us and a vote from the board to how we're moving forward, these are all estimates. So once we get closer to a final decision, or we have a final decision, and we better know what our state aid numbers, obviously that will help us too. But by consolidating and not having to, as I said earlier, run 2 of everything, when you have 2 middle schools and 2 high schools, you're naturally now having more availability and opportunity. By using some of our facilities, by using a facility that lends itself to more electives, and combining our staff with who have certain certifications for certain electives, it provides more opportunities for students. We can also run more classes because we have more students who will fill those classes. We had gotten into a place where, in some cases, we didn't have enough students to run courses, whether it are electives at the middle school or the high school level. So this will, by making it more equitable, it will allow us to run more course opportunities for students and electives.
Can you just like describe for me an example of like what would a community member look at and be like, wow, that's like an awesome, robust elective that we're now offering in 25, 26?
Wow.
I can speak to certain AP,
Electives, yeah, okay.
certain AP
Thank
courses
you.
that we have. You know, for example, AP
an
Calculus
elective,
BC. Typically, we only get maybe 8 to 10 students maybe interested in a class like that. Once you combine both high schools, you'd be able to have, you know, one robust class of 15, 20 kids in a course like that. Several of our AP courses fall in that category where we really just don't get the enrollment to really run full sections of them. So that would be one of the biggest things. Same with some of our honors courses. When you start getting into the areas of business, accounting, economics, courses like that, sometimes they will not be, you know, fully enrolled in one of the 2 high schools, if not both of them. So those are like your higher end electives, courses like that.
So like robust means that if a class is full, right, kids can have a discussion and maybe more interaction and the class is offered, essentially. I'm just trying to understand.
Yes, and it's more cost effective to run. Like unfortunately what's happened, because we've been in this cut model, is a class that might have 7 or 8 kids, we're just not going to run it because it's just not cost effective to run a class with that few students. So being able to run the class would be, you know, where our cost savings and our cost effectiveness would come in.
I want to just go back to what Erica was saying, and because one of my questions was like, Dan had brought it up, like when we have these one-time revenues, Dan, you had mentioned like this could create issues. Like what are the issues? Like what's the big deal of just having a one-time fund and not getting something consistently?
So just take this year's, so we built a $7 million land sale into this year's budget that we're in right now. So we anticipate getting more, obviously we have a buyer for Rosenauer, we're gonna get more than $7 million. So it makes it okay for this year, but as we roll into next year, our expenses matched that revenue this year with $7 million more. So now when we roll over, now we need to find revenue to make up for and connect with the expense level that we're at.
In like business administrator world, if you had a one-time revenue, what would be something you would actually do with it that made sense besides balancing the budget?
Yeah, so rolling it into fund balance, like basically rolling into the next school year's budget would be something that you'd want to do on a very limited basis. You could also put it into capital reserve to pay for construction projects, for facilities. You could also put it into maintenance reserve for required maintenance that you do on your buildings. And our comprehensive maintenance plan is about $1.5 million every year. So we could put it into those things to make a sustainable source of funding for those necessary expenses.
The maintenance fund, I know it has a title, but that fund has been defunded, so to speak, for us.
Yeah, so it's
so our ability to maintain things.
Yeah, so this school district hasn't made a contribution to the maintenance reserve fund in our recent history. We do have a very small capital reserve fund. And really, in a school district this large, we should be having a much larger one, because at any time you could have a facility need that requires, like a major repair, like a roof or something like that.
Yeah, I have a question. What collaboration efforts have been considered to address traffic safety, especially in Tier 3, in the congested area, and any recommendations regarding McAuliffe?
I just want to make sure I heard your question correctly. So what have we looked at in Tier 3, traffic-wise, to address? So the normal things that, currently we've had an issue, that we've asked the police to look at and make recommendations. And we also met with the police department, but, they have limited resources too. So that's difficult as well. And so some of the things that we can explore is on our property, ensuring that maybe only a right turn gets made, or allowing for, again, certain times that we make sure our buses can get out easily and hold on parent pickup or parent drop-off to be a later time, so that they're not coming in together. So those are some of the things that you look at to try and alleviate that. Other than that, it's beyond our control of what has to happen there. Those are county roads too, so that's difficult. The police department was kind enough to invite us to a county traffic meeting that we're going to tomorrow to express our concerns and see if they can help it at all as well.
And you'll keep us posted with that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
How about transportation maintenance? How are we going to keep up with all these extra miles that we're going to put on these buses? And that I know our fleet is getting pretty old.
Yeah, so we've kept up with replacing our school buses on an annual lease every year. A lease payment drops off, and we add one. And we've been able to purchase 9 school buses every year, 9 new school buses. So that's been the cycle that we've been on. And when we ran the numbers, we ran every scenario that the committee came up with for transportation. And there was actually some surprising things when you ran the numbers, what you would think would be a longer set of routes for longer mileage or whatever else. Actually, it turned out to be shorter in some cases. So, I mean, it does wash out. The transportation department does a great job, and our garage, our mechanics do a great job of maintaining our facilities, doing the preventative maintenance to make sure that they last as long as they possibly can. The Jackson standard for a school bus is the state standard. We actually just talked about this in our transportation department meeting. We use buses for 20 years. So, if you're a school district that's doing a replacement cycle at 14 years, yeah, you're spending a lot more money on school buses. But we really invest in maintaining them to get the most out of them.
What is the state required?
The state maximum is 20 years. So that's when we retire buses,
okay.
Yep.
Sorry. So thinking of the Tier 3 dismissal times, if you're using one side of the town, you said that the Jackson police don't have the resources to really help us out there, right, and patrol during that time. I know that we have discussed, because they're county roads, I guess that would be like the state police, sheriffs, okay. Did we look into that further? Would they help with that? Would they delay any of the lights? Would they patrol traffic? Did anyone look into that yet?
That's our hope tomorrow at the meeting, to discuss that. Yep.
Any other further discussion from the board? I want to thank the administrative team. Thank you very much. I need a motion to open public forum on any topic pertaining to the Board of Education.
Motion.
Second.
Please sign in and state your name and whether or not you are a Jackson resident. Each person is allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. No person may speak more than once on the topic until all others have been heard.
Let the games begin.
Are you guys going to select who goes first?
Okay, I'll start with you, Officer Hemba.
Okay. Good evening. Most of you know me. Jeff Henba, 43-year resident, Memorial graduate, 99. I know a lot of you here. I'm also a police officer in Jackson, a sergeant. I was in the traffic safety unit for the last 2 years. I do have data from traffic safety, that tests that we just ran the last 2 weeks. I'm going to go over that. Mr. Baginski, this 3-minute time limit, in my opinion, is absurd with a decision like this. So if I talk a little longer, it is what it is. To the school monitor, with all due respect, none of these problems even happened until you got here and until the Murphy regime took over the state. So really, her opinion doesn't matter to me. All right, so I have a couple questions, and I'm going to get into the data, so just give me some time here. Why are we continually running millions of dollars in the negative when you have cut multiple positions and programs the last 7 years? Where's the money going? Why haven't we figured out how to operate a sustainable budget these last 7 years with the decrease in students? How was this committee formed? I was never asked. I'm a resident here 43 years. A member of the police department was never asked. Members of the committee and school board members had a meeting on January 8th, 2 weeks ago, with our public safety director and traffic safety officers to discuss the traffic in and around both schools. The traffic data around Liberty was completed today. And Memorial hasn't been started yet because we were just asked to do this a couple weeks ago, but apparently already made a decision without this data. Why don't you put grades 5th through 8th in one school, then 9th through 12th in another? Why are we wasting our time putting a 5th and 6th graders in a middle school? It makes no sense. This decision was rushed. The committee didn't do all the research before the decision was made. As you can see, by the meeting with the police department was only conducted on January 8th. Memorial has 20 more classrooms in Liberty. Yes, parking spaces are more at Liberty. However, the senior parking argument that I see on Facebook is ridiculous. As you can go back to a lottery for senior parking permits like we did in the late 90s and 2000s. Driving is a privilege, and if a student isn't selected in the lottery system, then guess what? They can carpool with their friends, which would decrease the amount of vehicles driven to high school every day. And my last concern, before I get into the data, is athletics, something I'm very passionate about.
We have 20 more seconds, Officer Ensler.
Well, that's going to go over, man, because I got a lot more to go over.
Sir, everybody's going to have to follow the 3-minute rule tonight until everybody's had an opportunity.
All right. Traffic Safety has run some preliminary inquiries through the New Jersey Division of Highway Traffic Safety's Numeric Crash Analysis tool to obtain comparison data for crashes around both the Memorial High School and the Liberty High School. We filtered the results to only show data for crashes occurring in 21, 22, and 23.
Officer Hemba, I'm sorry, but your 3 minutes is up. You can come back around.
Am I up?
Do what you want.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, over here. Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Andrea Frangella. I have 2 kids in the district. Just a few things I want to state. Where does 6th grade sports fall into anywhere? Because now that's a 5th, 6th, and then the 7th, 8th. So are they not going to be included in middle school sports since they're not considered an upper elementary? Traffic, we get it. But when they're starting that early in the morning, I can get my kid to school in 6 minutes straight up Hope Chapel Road without a problem. So, and then the last thing I want to say is I just hope that the board, regardless of what side of town you live on, you vote objectively and clearly on what the committee has come up with. Thank you.
Before the next person speaks, I just want to let everybody know we're going to respond to questions at the end, so we are taking notes.
Got it. Thank you. I signed in. Jennifer L. Kuhn, Jackson resident, 48 Redwood. I'm also a council member, council president for the last 2 years. A lot of you guys know me. You're probably not going to like what I have to say right now, but I'm very transparent if you've seen my meetings. I've opened up the lines of communication between the township and the Board of Ed in the last 2 years. I've met with you. I've talked about traffic safety. We've gone over you guys selling property. Township has bought them, and there's still no money. Selling is obviously not working. So we think we really need to look into, with other schools, with GETS, looking into renting it and keeping the real estate as the values go up in town, and that you guys can situate, when we're in that 5-year plan, then look at the redistricting, look at what you're doing. And also in regards to putting 5th and 6th graders, I know as a council person, a lot of residents reach out to me. A lot of people don't understand that the council and the township has nothing to do with the Board of Ed. You're your own entity. But again, I constantly try to reach out. You guys don't reach out to us throughout this whole process. But when you guys wanted to sell property and we had to sit down and you guys were going over traffic and busing, I'm the one that set up those meetings. The county me that you're talking about, I reached out. I reached out with traffic safety and we set up those meetings. He's gonna read the reports and they need to be read. And I understand it's a lot, but we know what's going on with the accidents and stuff like that. I am not getting a decision of where to go or what to do, but I am going to get into the decision of that you guys need to reach out and work with the township and the council, because we need to answer people that come to our meetings and ask us questions and say, where's my fifth grader going to go? You know, one of my best friends has a kid. He's not going to get to enjoy what fifth graders get to enjoy. That's a lot for these kids. You know, it's a lot for a fifth grader to be in with a seventh or eighth grader. I'm just saying, it's whatever you guys are doing with the redistricting. But I am saying, I'm reaching out on Olive Branch on behalf of administration and council. I am legislation, I am council, but we are here and we would like to work together and be involved in these decisions. Thank you.
Officer Hemba, I'm
Yes.
so sorry, but you have to wait till everybody speaks.
Oh
It's
my
public now. It's just the law.
I'm president of Jackson. I'm a school administrator.
I want to hear what he has to say too, but I
I'm
just
giving
have
my
to.
time to the officer. Out of
Then-
respect for him.
Yeah.
I'll go back over there now.
I'm Dr. Christopher Velotti. I just wanted to say that I hope that we can all come together as one, whether it's at school A or B, and be one together. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ashton Klinsky. I'm a junior at Jackson Memorial High School. I lived in Jackson Township my whole life and intend on finishing my senior year at Memorial. In the event that it rains on that momentous day, I will walk across the stage that you all sit in front of. I love this school. Of course, she isn't perfect, no one is, but she's full of memories for me and other students here. My older brother was a senior my freshman year, meaning I had a guaranteed best friend throughout the year. Seeing his paw print in Upstairs Memorial is a constant reminder of his legacy at the school, and the dream of having my paw print next to his has been mine for as long as I can remember. In this massive auditorium, I have performed countless times before I was even a thespian, both solo and alongside my dear brother. This room means more to me than the thought of sharing a classroom with upwards of 30 kids. If not for this room, to be blunt, I wouldn't be here. I would have given up on myself far too early. Luckily, Miss Larson's drama club saved me from the never-ending spiral I found myself in. The guidance staff, notably Miss Casiano, whose office I've cried in more times than I'd like to publicly admit, has ironically been my guiding light for the past 3 years at Memorial. I know I can walk into Miss Siner's office whenever I need to talk about anything stressing me out, and I can stop by Miss Leopold's room just to talk about my day. I would argue that this school holds some of the best teachers and staff in all of New Jersey, and uprooting 60 years of dedication just to send students to a newer, shinier school seems awfully unfair. Every board meeting held in the past however many years has been held and recorded in this auditorium. The classrooms are significantly larger than those at Liberty, and the student drivers have a much safer chance of making it to Memorial Senior parking lot than they do trying to get into Liberty. Please let me and my friends finish our time at Memorial. I understand fully that I'm just some random girl standing up here probably crying about a subject that you probably don't really care about. But this is my community. It is my school, my senior year, and my memories. 60 years is a long time to throw away in an instant. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Dave Mazika. I'm a Jackson, New Jersey resident. I have kids in the public school system here. My question relates to the operating savings. It was cited that we would save $8 million permanently. I'm wondering if you mean per year. I'm also wondering where that savings comes from. Going back to Michael's question, it seems like if we do nothing from what Dan said, we're going to have to cut faculty and staff. It also sounds like by doing this, we're cutting faculty and staff. Ms. Parmilli, you seem to indicate that we don't know what those numbers are until we make a decision. That seems to be a little bit backwards. It seems like you need to present those numbers so it's clear, so you have a clear comparison on what are the cuts by doing nothing and what are the cuts by making this change. It sounds like we're going to have a $13 million deficit in 25-26. You subtract 8 from that, that still leaves a $5 million deficit. Presumably selling or renting gets will, get us out of that hole a little bit, but that maybe buys a year or two, if that, and then we're right back to where we were, question mark, and then what, right? We have another, we only have so many schools that we can sell, so that's a concern. And lastly, I would like to see the comparative value of Getz versus McAuliffe. And McAuliffe is that much more of a desirable asset because it's a newer, shiny building, and also probably because its location and presumably who the purchaser is going to be. it seems like that would be important to look at, because theoretically, if you got double for McAuliffe for Getz, then maybe you could roll that money into refurbishing Getz and getting it up to a 21st century classroom. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education, faculty, and community members. Please assure that I am a very nervous high school student, so this is kind of hard to do. My name is Nicole Raslin. I'm currently a junior at Jackson Memorial High School. When my family and I moved here from New York, I wasn't sure what to expect, but I quickly realized that this school wasn't just a place to learn, it became a home. Over the years, I've grown academically, finishing my 8 to 9 AP classroom, where I plan to finish in 2026. Joined extracurricular activities and even started my own medical-based club here and built friendships I'll treasure forever. The school has given me opportunities I couldn't have imagined, and it's become a cornerstone of my high school experience. So when I heard about this possibility of our school being moved, I felt compelled to speak up, not just for myself, but for everyone who calls this school home. I know you've likely heard about many defenses for keeping the school in its current building. However, I ask that you put this into consideration, as I also propose a solution to minimize crowding in Memorial's hallways, a shift schedule that balances our needs without uprooting our community. Our current location isn't just convenient, it's essential. Bigger building equals bigger opportunities, less traffic chaos, more police departments here, senior and junior parking. To address concerns about overcrowding, I propose implementing a shift schedule that would divide students into different shifts, such as, for example, but not limited to, because of transportation. Shift 1, 7:20 a.m. to 1:33, Shift 2, 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m., and Shift 3, 9:52 a.m. to 3 p.m. This plan allows us to keep the current building while managing class sizes and resources more efficiently. It also is a solution that minimizes disruption while addressing the concerns. And I want to thank you all for the incredible experience the school has given me. The teachers, staff, and my peers have shaped me into who I am today. I know I speak for many students when I say that this school is more than just a building, it's our community. Please consider this proposal as a way to address the challenges we face without sacrificing what makes the school so special. Thank you for your time.
Hi, I am Sophia Panabianco. I am a sophomore here at Jackson Memorial High School. First of all, I would like to start by saying thank you for taking the time to listen to the public on this situation. My time here at Jackson Memorial has been limited, seeing as I am only a sophomore. However, it has been special to say the least. I've been given opportunities to do the morning announcements, participate in fun school events, and have the full Jaguar experience. The most important thing to me about this school, however, is preparing for my future. Being in drama club has always been a plan of mine since I was in elementary school, seeing as my dream has always been to go to college for musical theater and eventually be on Broadway. I'm extremely happy that the drama clubs are combining next year because that means a bigger cast and more friends. Because we will have a larger club next year, the only answer to putting on a good production would be keeping JMHS as the high school. Combined drama club means having more kids, which means a bigger audience. Our auditorium would be the only option to fit all of the kids even on the stage, let alone people in the audience. If the decision is for Liberty to be the high school, does a bigger club mean cuts because the stage at Liberty High School is so small? Drama club is supposed to be a place where everyone is welcome no matter what. Some kids may not even feel comfortable auditioning next year because everything would be so unfamiliar. I feel that keeping both our advisors would help with the merge and also give us a familiar face for a director. Our club is self-funded, and we want to be able to do what we love. Unfortunately, Liberty does not have the stage and space to do so. If Liberty does become the high school next year and we wanted to use Memorial's auditorium because of its size, busing to this auditorium for rehearsal almost every day would be impossible and a huge hassle. Lastly, the tradition of fantastic productions put on here at Jackson Memorial are shown here on these walls. The playbill paintings show how long this school has cared about the arts and should continue to. We want to join with Liberty. We want to share that tradition with you, whether or not that means here or there next year. Overall, we want what's best for both theater communities. Thank you for listening, and have a great night.
Hi, Deb Jones, Jackson resident. I, like many people here, I went to school here. I raised my kids here. Jackson's changing. I'd like to thank the people who were on the committee because they did give up a lot of their time to do what's best for our school district. And you guys have said, one Jackson. And I hate to be the one to say it, but this school board is not facing this situation because of anything they did. I wish half the people in here would be at council meetings, zoning board meetings. All these changes that are going on in town are what's causing our school districts. So we need to save them. We can't put it on the back of anyone else. We need to put it on our backs and start showing up.
Hi, my name is Gregory Sinclairs. I am a junior at Jackson Memorial High School, and I am part of the stage crew for the drama club. I wanted to come up here and kind of represent them because I feel like we're not having enough talk about them and representation as a club. I think that as points that have been brought up before, combining the two schools will mean double the drama club, double the sets, double the stage crew, and the facts are that Liberty doesn't have a big enough stage to accommodate all of the sets, everyone on stage, and even if we did want to rehearse here, we have a full week in which we'd need busing and have, everyone has to be here, and that's just a lot of resources that I feel like is unnecessary if we made Memorial the high school.
I'm Marianne, Jackson resident. My whole thing is the safety of our students, so traveling from one section to the other to a more congested area is a big fear for me, and what is Jackson going to do to make sure our kids are safe? Are we going to put more street lights so the kids can see pedestrians walking? Are we going to have more traffic lights to stop traffic? Are we going to have police officers directing traffic to and from the area? Because we don't want any of our kids getting into a major accident. Also, studies show later start times for high school students help them academically. Many other states do later for high school. Now you're asking our kids to travel further, which is going to impact their academically. Also, big class sizes is going to affect our children academically in their most important years, because high school depends on how they get into college. And I'm sorry, but just want them to be safe and to have a good education. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nicole Duarte, Jackson resident. So am I correct that I heard before that the panel is who will make the decision and that this was just a recommendation tonight? If that is in fact true, I would like to know how many of you are Memorial parents versus Liberty parents. Seems a little biased by some of the questions that were being asked earlier. I would like to know who from the Jackson Police Department did this traffic report that he's so eager to share. I would like to know what cop it is, because my daughter goes to McAuliffe and I see the traffic at McAuliffe. Just so you all know, it is not a lot of Hasidic Jews. It is just everyday people like us going to work that are passing by. So there is an officer that is there, but he actually just stands there and talks to the security guard. So I'm wondering, this report, who was it? Is it that same man that's there? That's a little confusing to me. As for carpooling, you would think as an officer that you would know you can't carpool because you can only have one other high schooler in the car with you. Not going to work. Also, for everybody super concerned about the high school traffic, I drive my high schooler to school at 6:50 a.m. There are no Hasidic Jews out. Thank you.
Hey, Jeff, if you'd like, we could call you back up when everybody goes, so you don't have to stand there, if you'd like. Yeah.
We're going
Go
now?
ahead. Yep.
All right. I'm Derek Layton. I'm a junior at Jackson Liberty High School, and I come to you here today because this is the deciding factor of whether I get to go to my own school next year or whether I go to Memorial. As far as I know, Jackson Memorial just this summer actually had one of the walls crumbling in the gymnasium, and there were reports of rats. And frankly, I don't want to go to school here. And I'm sure many of you are concerned with the safety of the students here, as they are both your kids. And here we are today deciding the safety of both your kids and their kids after them. It is the future of this district that is coming into question today. I don't even know where to start, because not Because not only is the entire, I don't know where the police officer went, but you can't carpool. Like the Memorial has one entrance and one exit, and Liberty has 3 entrances and 3 exits. There is no question as to whether there should be senior parking or which school is easier to drive into, because there is simply just a lack of entrances and exits here at Memorial. And as a member of stage crew at Jackson Liberty, the stage here is not that much smaller than the one over there. Maybe 3/4 the size, but with a decreasing number of students, as you all have pointed out, it should not be an issue for next year. I don't know the exact size of the cast and crew of Jackson Memorial, but I don't think it's going to be an issue in the future. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jerry Porlo. I live in Bayhead, but I am the longest tenure teacher in Jackson. Thank you. I work in McAuliffe. I'm on the side of town that there's traffic. And I wanted to assure everyone that I never had to sleep over because I didn't have to get out, I couldn't get out of McAuliffe. I am always able to make a left turn. It might take me, at some hours, it might take me, a little bit longer, but I'm always able to make a left turn. And I want to ensure people that when even though there's a lot of people there, we get out. We come in and we come out. It's all good. I know how hard this committee worked, and I know how tough this decision was. And there are many people here that support you, and I just wanted to take a moment and thank you.
Hello, Veronica Burnett. I live in town and I teach in town. Jerry's number 1. I'm number 4. I just like to say. These decisions, I so appreciate that the board has had to make the decisions just based on the facts and no emotions. And I can tell you as a resident, as a parent, as a teacher especially, I do a lot of things in Jackson. I coach, I do the musical at Liberty. And the teachers that I know, we are all committed to, when this merge happens, making it easier for your kids. We want to embrace all of the students. I have always said, I want to teach everybody. Now I get to teach so many more people, and I love that. And as far as cutting, none of the programs that I do, I cut anyway. I don't cut cross-country kids. I don't cut musical kids. Your kids are going to get to be involved. And my very favorite musical composer is Stephen Sondheim, and I'm just going to give you a couple of his lyrics from one of my favorite musicals, Into the Woods. Careful the things you say, children will listen. Yes. Yes. Careful the things you do, children will see and learn. Children may not obey, but children will listen, and children will look to you for what they can be and what they will do. We have to set the precedent for how we're going to handle this. If the parents act like their children can't succeed, their children are not going to succeed. You have to make it okay, because the change, regardless of how the change happens, the change is going to happen, and one side of town is not going to be happy. But those children still need to be successful. Those children still need to find their place. Those children still need to be accepted, and they still need to enjoy high school. And it's got to come from you guys. So I'm imploring you, please trust the teachers that are going to do everything we can to give your kids the best experiences. We will treat them with tenderness and generosity. We know that next year is going to be difficult for them, and we want to be part of the solution. So please don't think that just because it doesn't end up at the school you want it to be, that they're going to not have the same opportunities and they're not going to be considered. Thank you.
Yeah, you spoke already, so I'm going to have to let everybody speak. I'm so sorry. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Bonnie Holton, Jackson resident, Westlake Court. I spoke at the last meeting. The traffic thing, if that's such an atrocity in this town, and I mentioned this the last meeting, we need to fix it across the town. There's traffic everywhere, there's accidents everywhere. My kid drives, I guarantee you, if my child lived on the other side of Jackson, they would drive to Starbucks, which has to go through the bad side of Jackson to get there. So to go to school, to go to Starbucks, to go to Target, it's everywhere. So traffic studies need to be done. I live off East Veterans. It's like a highway. I put my kid on a bus on a highway every morning, people flying by, disregarding the buses. So traffic needs to be addressed, not at your level, obviously, but it should not be involved in a BOE decision. This is about funding, this is about saving the town, and this is about saving our schools and doing what's best for the kids. I will also say, I do appreciate all of you up there. I immensely appreciate the committee. The work that they've done, what you showed, Ms. Parmelli, on the numbers and everything that was done and the steps that were taken, very methodical the last couple of meetings I've been attending. Please use data, not biases, not history, not emotion. The history of this town left. It's gone. The history that once was is gone. I moved here for a better life for my children 12 years ago. We need to make it new, and we need to make it something that they can be proud of now, with the change that's happening now, and not take more away from any of them. Make it better, come together for them, and I really hope that the forums that you mentioned about the students, and I mentioned that last time, really bring the kids as part of this journey, because that's the only way that they're gonna get, and make it equal. That's the biggest thing here, because there is a divide, and it is big, and our children feel it. If it's in this room, our children are actually feeling it as well, and there's fear, and they need to be brought on this journey to make things better for everybody across the board.
I am not touching this. Carla Cardace, I've been a resident for over 25 years at this point. One is, I do think we need to recognize the high school kids who have come out here tonight to speak up. I'm super impressed with all of them. I think it's great to hear from them who are going to be impacted the most. So just want to thank them. Number two is the traffic. Yes, everyone's talking about the traffic throughout the entire township. I fully understand that's not within your control. However, the traffic involved in combining two high schools is a reality. It is very dangerous. I personally, like many of us others, do not really like the whole Veterans and Hope Chapel intersection. It's very dangerous. So my request is not that you solve that problem, but at least come up with some options, because leaving it alone is not one. I've already had one accident there, and that was just in the middle of the afternoon, not during the school day, but in the middle of the afternoon when kids are going to be leaving their extracurricular activities, double the seniors, double the cars, and I had an accident. So I just think it's inevitable, and I think we need to have a solution, whether it is a traffic cop who is monitoring those intersections. I understand the resources are tight, but something has to be proposed. So that would be my request, is let's not just say, we know it's bad, let's do something about it. The last thing is, I have been part of the gymnastics team going on third year. Every year we've begged for funding, and every year, understandably, we have gotten zero. So we've been self-funded. We're gearing up for yet another self-funded season, which is completely unfair to these girls. I might add, they had an undefeated season. Last season, they were, I believe, 11-1. It's a talented group of individuals who have had to bust their humps to pay for it. The gym, the floor needs repair. There's a lot of things going on. And so I speak not only for the gymnastics team, but any other club or activity that has become self-funded. I would hope that during all this planning, there is a plan to bring some of that back. If we're saving money, and I love all the new programs and all the things that we're offering, but how about returning the stuff that got taken away? So that would be my request. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Diane Leopold. I'm a teacher in the school district. I want to circle away from traffic, and I want to circle away from the animosity that I feel as a vibe in this building right now. And I think that we need to focus on the fact that Memorial kids don't want to be Lions and Liberty kids don't want to be Jaguars. So I think what we have to focus on isn't this right here. We need to rebrand. Whatever we're doing, and the rebranding can't wait till May, it can't wait till June, you need a committee, and that committee has to include kids, because our kids haven't been included in any of this. They get to come to the mic, they get to have their say, they get to give their opinion, but they have not been brought in on this conversation. There wasn't a survey sent to the kids. I talk to my kids all the time. They have opinions, they have vibe, they have passion. That passion, you need these kids involved. Stop having the parents come in, stop having the parents talk about the traffic and the safety. Let these kids talk about it. Regardless of if they're a Liberty kid or a Memorial kid, let these kids have a say in what happens to our one Jackson. And I'm air quoting it because we don't know what's gonna happen. You want us to come together, we want to come together, but we cannot do this without our student body. We need our representatives in our student classes. We need it 9 through 12 of the kids who are currently here. We need our kids to have a voice, and it cannot just be a bunch of adults making decisions on what's gonna happen to them. Thank you.
Okay, so my name is Ronnie Fiorelli. I'm a sophomore. I'm 15 years old at Jackson Memorial High School. I originally went through the Getz, and I went through Getz Middle School, and halfway through my 8th grade year, I decided to go to Valley Forge Military Academy to personally not only grow in my academic side, but also because I want to pursue a career in the military. This year, I decided to come back to Jackson. This was a decision between me and my parents. And not only have I loved Jackson Memorial, but it has been the best year of my public high school career. Jackson Memorial High School has offered so many programs with the ROTC, and keeping 2 separate schools and having 2 separate bodies, it's not something that can just easily be changed overnight. One of the big things for me was the location. Memorial is a little bit more centrally located than Liberty. Has the board considered that those bus rides from the people on the super far left side of Jackson all the way to the Liberty side of town is going to be a super, not only large commitment on the parents for, not really parents that want to drive their kids to school, but also the kids that are going to be on those buses losing out on so much more time during their day. If you were talking about parking, we also have to consider that maybe we don't have to give parking passes out as easily. We can make it a merit and academically based system. Parking passes for seniors can be based on academic involvement, honors and AP classes, and overall involvement in the school. Thank you, that's all I have to say.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mike Smith, 55-year resident here, graduate here, 30-year teacher, 25-year coach. I'm not going to propose one school or the other. My daughters went to Liberty, supported every athletic, academic achievement they received. So I'm not going to tell you one school is better than the other. That's not going to happen. But first of all, I've been here 30 years. There's no rats in the building falling down. That's just a fact. All right? I mean, let's not exaggerate what's happening. Second of all, the east side of town is growing. We know that. I live off Whitesville Road. It's expanding all the time. I just got 50 new houses put over there. It is what it is. Grawtown Road is also being taken over. Jackson Memorial, someone else said history and tradition doesn't matter. That's the worst thing. Both schools have history. Both schools have tradition. Build what you have. Stay one. Stay sound. I feel like it's deja vu. I sat here in 2006 and said, one school should be the junior high, one school should be the high school. And I was told I'm the football coach. That's the only reason that happens. But the reality is, we knew this was happening. We had 3,000 kids. The bottom line is, we have housed 3,000 kids here. That's a fact. So 3,000 kids have been here. We were successful. I just think, stay where you're at. You know what we can do. We can't go back and change it once we do it. We get over there, the east side grows too big. What are we going to do? That's the bottom line. I think we stay where we know it's successful.
Hi, I'm Jackie Malczynski. I have 3 kids in the district. One's at Liberty. So, I mean, obviously you know what I'm going to say about that. I live close to Liberty. The traffic is just as bad on the other side of town. The people that are saying that there's not accidents on the other side of town are full of crap. Like, there's plenty of posts I see about accidents on the other side of town. So I don't want to hear anything about traffic, but my concern is, like, I know you would ask for other issues that you might not see that are coming. I have 2 at Holman. I would like to know, to make sure, because one of them is disabled. So I would like to make sure that you are taking into consideration that all of the schools are capable of addressing issues with kids with disabilities. Second of all, the tier for transportation, I would like you to also consider the effects that it'll have on parents and issues with pickups and drop-offs, because in a year, according to that, my 5th grader is going to come home after my 3rd grader. So that's going to be an issue. So just take that into consideration too.
Pete Boyko, as a lifelong resident of Jackson, I just want long-term sustainability of our school district. I think we need to stop these short-sighted fire sales of our assets. And like Rosenauer, for pennies on the dollar, what happens when we run out of assets to sell? Where do we see the district in 5 years from now? There's no crystal balls, I understand that. But you know, how do we stop this bleeding and really, you know, I mean, okay, so these developments, they, you know, maybe there's no kids being born in these developments. What if there are? We build more schools, we buy them back? Thank you.
You spoke already, so if you could just let the young man behind you go, please.
All right. I'm going to speak about, hold on. I'm Donovan from Liberty. ROTC at Memorial is going to be bigger because of just the 2 schools combining and more opportunities, but also just, I lost it, but just because there's more opportunities for people to grow and everything. I lost it, my fault. I'll come back to me later.
I still got a couple new people that came to the mic.
How you doing, guys? Vin Mistretta, 633 Winterberry, Jackson Memorial graduate, employee, resident here since 1995. So, a couple things. First of all, for everybody in the room, this is an unbelievable opportunity for Jackson to come together and excel in the arts, in academics, and in sports and athletics, all right? So we have to focus on the positives. We got to come together first and foremost before anything else. And again, stop the animosity of us versus them and all that nonsense. Yeah. And for anybody concerned about, you know, there's more people in this club or there's more people in this sport, competition will breed success and will breed, you know, will allow people to fight through some adversity and get better at their craft. So don't be afraid of competition. Let's embrace it, all right? Just going back to, you know, one of the slides, you guys talked about some of the things, points of emphasis when the committee was meeting. At the top of that list, there was a couple things. There was location of schools, there was busing time, and there was minimizing the number of students impacted. And I think everyone has kind of touched on it. And again, we don't want to harp on traffic and all that stuff. But as far as location, if you're talking about the high schools, Jackson Memorial is a more centrally located school. There is not going to be a 50-minute bus ride from any corner of town to come to Jackson Memorial High School. And for my next year incoming 5th grader, who's going to be affected and going to be one of those children on a bus for 55 minutes or whatever the allotment you guys decided was appropriate, it's not appropriate for my 10-year-old to be on a bus for an hour long before a school day. It's not. And again, you look at numbers and you look at the changing demographics in town, and we are taking, you know, the majority. There's a lot of kids on both sides of town still, and I understand that. But if you're talking about minimizing impact on the numbers and the data, if you're taking the larger group and you're telling them to move to the side of town where there's the smaller group, that doesn't really make sense as far as numbers and data go, in my opinion. So it's a thing that we should look at. You know, both buildings are good. I'm excited for the opportunity to continue to send my kids here, to continue to teach in this district, to hopefully be involved in athletics as it continues on. But You know, as far as looking at your words and the things that you put out here, I don't think that a bigger hallway at Jackson Liberty is the main reason or should be the main attraction for that being named the high school. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Dr. Steve Wisniewski. I have 3 daughters in the district. My oldest is a junior here at Memorial. I'm a 25-year educator, so I want to talk about maybe some data that we haven't talked about. I know traffic was a big piece of this study, but I think we missed out on some pieces like violence and vandalism reports. I don't know if we've looked into those numbers. I have. I know that the violence and vandalism reports at Memorial are different than the ones that are at Liberty, so I would ask you to go do those researches for yourself. Those are the type of pieces that we should start to look at. High school ranking. You know, when we look at the high school ranking between Memorial and Liberty, I'm not going to stand here and disparage one school over the other. I would encourage you to look at that. My daughter is a junior. She has a full complement. She's taking 4 AP classes right now. So if we are missing classes for AP, let's look to see maybe where those classes are being missed because they're not here at Memorial. I'm not going to disparage one school over the other. But if you look at all of those type of data points, and all of those data points point to one school, but yet the other school has a fancier hallway, I don't know if it makes sense to take academic pieces away from the school that is already thriving so that they could be in a bigger hallway. Those are some suggestions for actual data that you might be able to look at when making the decision on where students are going to go. I have stepped foot in Liberty, but I am not going to say that one school is better than the other. That is for the data to say the answer. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sophia King. I'm a junior in Jackson Memorial High School. I just have a question, nothing really serious, but I was just curious how we're going to assign teachers to AP classes, because I'm going to be a senior next year, and I'm worried about my academics and my college, and I want to know if we're going to assign teachers by seniority or by their score results, depending more on AP scores. That's really it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dara. I've lived here all my life. I heard about Liberty's amount of students that are allowed to go to Liberty and the amount of students that are allowed to go here. I believe it's 1,400 here and 1,900 at Liberty. So it's not about the hallways. It's not about the hallways. Another thing I wanted to address that I heard earlier that you guys wanted to hear was, if you rent out a building, you are responsible for maintenance on it. So that might be something you can consider. And I'm right in the middle of it all because I went to Memorial, but my son goes to Liberty. So this is a very big decision. And I bless all the students, no matter where they go. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Erica Rizzo. I'm a junior at Jackson Memorial High School, and I'm really concerned about the security for next year because, as many people may know, Liberty Memorial kids do not really mix, as evidence from many football games as to why there was not a Jackson Memorial and Jackson Liberty football game this year, because there's been many incidents regarding fights and weapons brought to those games. So will security increase? Will there be more, more security with bathrooms? Will there be more security with common lunch? Will common lunch just go away entirely? How can I be sure that me and my friends and my other peers will be safe, depending on whichever school we go to? That's all I have.
Okay, my name's Stacy Ricciardi. I actually have a sixth grader and I have a junior at Liberty. So, this is a big bone of contention in our homes. And I wasn't going to speak, but once I heard that gentleman speak about I didn't want to disparage between the two schools. I also have a junior who takes 4 AP classes at Liberty. So I'm confused on why he thinks Memorial having 4 AP classes is so much more significant than Liberty. I also wanted to say that I'm also confused about the whole traffic thing. Like, we're not closing Jackson Liberty High School, so aren't we still, whether we're busing our 7th and 8th graders to Jackson Liberty High School, or we're busing our 9th through 12th graders to Jackson Liberty High School, it's the same thing. And I actually will have a child at either one of these high schools. So it's very important to me that everyone is safe, like everyone says, but I also, up until recently, drove my junior to high school every single day, and I drive my McAuliffe student to McAuliffe every single day. And I have to tell you, I do not hit any traffic, and when I pick my junior up, if they get out at 1:33, by 1:40, the entire lot is empty. The buses are out that second one, and the kids use the first lot. Everyone's out, everyone's safe, there's no traffic, and yeah, I hope that's taken into consideration, but thank you.
Hi, my name is Isabella Feiner. I'm a junior here at Jackson Memorial High School. My family has been in Jackson their entire lives. I have family members involved with law enforcement, Jackson Police, and Jackson Towing. The traffic isn't made up. I've witnessed it myself, so nobody here is making it up. We've all witnessed it. That is a major concern that should not be taken lightly. That's why so many people are mentioning it. And that's why it's a concern to so many people, because it's not made up. And it shouldn't be taken lightly at all. Yes, Liberty has nicer hallways, this and that, but it's more about safety concerns when it comes to how people are getting there. And if there's middle schoolers going there, that means there isn't as many students driving there because none of them can drive. So if there are as many high schoolers as there are driving to Liberty, with the traffic that I have witnessed at any time of the day, after sports, after school, that's more concerning than having middle schoolers who are being bused and not driving themselves, obviously. That's all, thank you.
Hi, my name is Rich Haber. I'm a 20-year Jackson resident with 3 kids in the district. I'm just hoping that someone can clarify what specifically the committee was responsible for recommending versus what the administration recommended, because this was presented tonight as entirely a committee recommendation, but my understanding is that the committee recommended a structure, but that the administration is recommending the buildings. And if that's true, I think that should be made public. That's not how it was presented here tonight. Thank you.
Okay, I'll rattle this off quick. 21, 22, 23, there was 330 crashes, 59 of them involving a driver between the ages of 16 and 20 around Liberty High School. Most crashes occurred on Tuesdays between 4 and 6. 32% of the crashes involved distracted driving, 35% were same direction rear end styles. 1 mile radius around Memorial, 95 crashes with 29 involving a driver between the ages of 16 and 20. In 2024, there was 184 crashes around Liberty High School. Remember, there's some 1 mile radius. There was 68 around Memorial. The volume per day on roadways, this is East Veterans Highway, North Hope Chapel, South Cooks, East Vets, another direction, and South Hope, another direction, all done within the last 2 weeks. Total volume on East Veterans Highway, remember 1 mile radius, 43,878 vehicles. On East Veterans Highway going eastbound, 47,156 vehicles, so that's 90,000 vehicles in a week. North Hope Chapel Road, 45,272 vehicles. South Cooks Bridge Road, 88,090 vehicles in a week. East Veterans Highway, 44,422 vehicles. That's another direction, that's another week as well. It was January 16th it started. And on South Hope Chapel Road, 82,000 vehicles. I have morning data, I have afternoon data. The problem is I don't have time to go over it all. This is future plans and plans that were already approved in the town to help determine future traffic infrastructure and congestion issues in the future near Jackson Liberty High School and McAuliffe. The Jackson Township Police Department Traffic Safety Unit examined proposed sites that were submitted to this unit from the years 2019 to 2024. After reviewing all responses to the Jackson Township Planning Board, 35 proposed sites were identified as being near the two schools and having a potential impact for the future. Of these sites, 20 were able to be fully researched, and 15 are still awaiting responses from the respective engineering firms with requested information. While researching these plans, the areas of South Hope Chapel Road, North Hope Chapel Road, Whitesville Road, East Veterans Highway, South Cooks Bridge, and Brewers Bridge Road were focused. The site plans were broken down so as to determine proposed use, residential, commercial, educational, retail. From there, the number of buildings for each site and any parking space that were proposed were also identified. Residents were not counted as having parking spaces. Some of these plans that were submitted are still in approval stages. Some have begun land clearing, and some are near completion. Plans for single-family homes with only one residence were not included. Of things to note, there are several large projects, each encompassing hundreds of acres of land, that are being proposed to building hundreds of homes or large warehouses with hundreds of parking spaces. Some of these proposed sites are Jackson Trail, South Hope Chapel Road, 357 single-family homes, 102 low-income homes, one house of worship with 208 parking spaces allotted. Denton Pines, Whitesville Road, Denton Lane, 41 single-family homes. Grawltown Estates, Grawltown Road, 482 single-family, 96 low-income homes. There are also 4 other proposed Grawltown Road sites with at least 225 homes requested to be built. The former Maple Lake Campground has site plans proposed consisting of 200 single-family homes and 104 parking spaces for house of worship. There's also a proposed private school that will educate 1,350 students on Brewers Bridge Road. There's at least 27 more school buses to the area twice per day. What's that?
I'm going to wrap you up here. I have a question.
Sure.
I know we said we'd leave them to the end, but since you presented a traffic safety report, can you tell me in the years if either 1 mile radius had any fatalities between Memorial and Liberty?
I don't have the fatality information with me, but I don't want to misspeak. I can
Okay.
get it to you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I come back again as representing Jackson Liberty High School. When you consider merging the schools, you do not consider one student body over the other. After this year, we will be unified no matter what occurs or which school we go to. There will be no avoiding fights, but we can work past that. There will be an ideological clash as these schools combine, and there is nothing we can do to avoid that. But we will merge after this school. So when you consider what location you're going to, you do not have to consider the student populace, but you do have to consider their thoughts and views on where they want to go, not their views on each other. Speaking of, one of these schools is quite older than the other, and I do not know how that affects maintenance fees or anything like that. I'm not an expert on economics or any of that sort, but when you take into consideration how much you would have to repair Memorial as it continues into the years and gets older and older compared to Liberty, which is only, what, 23 years old now, it will be you sending your children's children to a school that is either 80 years old or like 120. So just keep that in consideration.
Just 2 quick questions. I know you can't answer them right now, but what will happen with common lunch at the high school? And my other question is for 5th and 6th grade. Normally 5th graders are used to having before care. Is that something that will happen when we merge them into 5th and 6th graders together? Will they have before care and after care now? Thank you.
All right.
Hi, my name is Julie Nyman. I am a Jackson resident. I have a 5th grader and a 6th grader. There's not a lot of discussion about middle school right now, so I kind of just wanted to basically say that no matter what happens with the high school, if the middle school children aren't taken care of, there are not going to be kids going to these high schools, whichever high school. The most important thing that a lot of the students have brought up is a sense of community that they feel in their schools and the pride they feel in that. And putting 5th and 6th grade in a school and 7th and 8th grade in a school. My daughter is a 5th grader. She started kindergarten in COVID, mid-year, and they've had COVID in kindergarten, hybrid 1st grade. This would move her to 4 schools in 5 years. And that is not fostering any sense of community in our town and among our students. And the only other thing I just wanted to ask was if a 5 through 8 model on both sides of town was ever considered, because I feel like As someone who lived in Howell and went to one middle school where 9 elementaries merged, this would be a big adjustment for all of the students who've already had a lot of adjusting. I know that if you moved 5 to 8, say here, they would have a theater and a track, and you wouldn't have to bus a middle school to those facilities, and you would only have to move half of the students to use the facilities at the Liberty side. So I was just curious if that had been looked at and taken seriously, because I think as a few people have said, the majority of students, as I understand it, live on this side of town, and potentially moving them for 6 years of their education to the other side of town, there has to be a better way for all of us, I think. Thank you.
Hi, Catherine Baker Inzatari, resident of Jackson, 2022 graduate of Memorial, and I'm a sophomore at Memorial right now. First of all, I want to appreciate all the time and effort that's gone into everything, and respect that this is going to be extremely difficult for everyone that's involved. Couple things. First off, the 50-minute bus ride, I can guarantee you, I live over by Great Adventure along that way. It's going to be 50 minutes, if not more, because I've driven my daughter from there to this school, or to this school at 25 minutes with traffic, so I can only imagine what it will be to Liberty. So, and I know everybody talks about I can get to this school easily, I can get to this school easily. There will be twice as many students. So whatever you're doing now, you can throw it out the window. There's twice as many students, and you're factoring drivers for a high school. And if anybody's driven to Memorial in the morning, there is a very long line of high school drivers. That line will now be at Liberty, along with twice as many buses. So traffic is going to be a factor regardless. The other thing that I want to say is that everybody's talking about rebranding, and I think that has to happen. But I think if you look around, you've got a lot of kids with graduate jackets that say Liberty Lions and say Jackson Jaguars. So I really hope that whatever we do, we are looking out for our juniors and seniors next year, because this is going to be really hard for them. And they are Lions and they are Jaguars. And you can rebrand all you want, but they're wearing those jackets now. They don't want to wear a new jacket in the next 2 years. So appreciate that this is going to be difficult for them.
So I do track, and the track field at Liberty is one of the biggest in the state that can hold a meet. And there's also just more fields at Liberty than Memorial. And also, the traffic would just be bad at Memorial than Liberty. It would just be as bad because of all the parents and students and buses getting out of there. And also, we have the academies at Liberty. I'm not sure how we could have this at Memorial. So that's all I had to say.
I would like to point out that there has been a lot of talk of traffic and with the parking, and I'm not saying that the traffic's not important. Of course, the traffic's very, very important, but I have heard little to nothing about the education and how big the physical class sizes are going to be. And I think that if the board and the district is focused more on parking spaces than the education, I feel like we should really just stop and really rethink what we're really focusing on.
My name again is Dr. Christopher Velarde, and I've worked as a teacher, a principal. I hope whether it's Memorial or Liberty, you can provide these juniors and seniors with the resources that they need to get ahead and provide for college, whether it's vocational school or academic school. They can have the resources to learn more, gather more, and mature and go into college in a productive manner. Thank you. And as well, I want to say thank you for your service as a police officer, my friend, and God bless you all, guys. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to close public forum.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? I don't see discussion on here. Okay. Okay? You want to address them? I mean, I have one I want to address. So I just want to address President Councilwoman Kuhn, who came up asking for the board to work together with her. And I just want to point out that the enrollment committee had former Board of Education President Giuseppe Palmieri reach out to the council in November to start talking about some of the concerns that we could foresee happening. And I just want to respectfully request that all of the people that are working to the benefit of town, we don't play into the discourse. We're here, the people up here are volunteers, and we're doing what we feel is best for students with a focus in mind. And I'm just going to respectfully address that comment.
Thank you. I would like to just add to that I started this meeting by saying that this isn't anything anybody wanted to do. And I'm going to repeat that. We have worked hard to make the best recommendations based on what's best for our students academically, and what's best for our students long-term, and keeping extracurricular activities, things that we can no longer do. So this is all with the best intentions. These decisions have been made. So I know that the decisions for many people are emotional, and we respect that. But please know that this is about trying to make the best decisions for this district. We care about it. Certainly we wouldn't be here, the administrative team, if we didn't. And so we really do care about this district. So I'm going to attempt to answer some. I will not be able to answer probably all of the questions at this moment in time. Please know again that you have an opportunity. If you don't hear an answer or you don't see it in the Q&A document, we'll go in there and add some of these as well. Please look at the Q&A document tomorrow. Some of these questions are answered in there, and we will continue to grow that document. And you can also reach out. There will be a link in the email tomorrow for where you can send your email for any further questions or input you would like to provide. As I said, we have been listening to all of the input all from the onset, and we will continue to. And I know the board is continuing to do that. So I will start by saying a lot of conversation tonight about the high school decision. This is a comprehensive district, not just high school. And it is an important decision for all of our families and our students. Both of our high schools are great schools. They are wonderful places with incredible teachers. I have said this time and time again, our staff is amazing. And to the staff that spoke about that, and you will make sure kids are okay and that they transition well and that they have wonderful programs, thank you. Because I know our staff will ensure that happens. So thank you for speaking about that. Our buildings, Memorial is not crumbling. It's a great building. Liberty is a great building. But again, we had to make a decision in the best interest of what we thought we could provide our students instructionally and program-wise so that we are equitable for all of our students. None of our programs will change. We'll still have AP. We'll still have ROTC by uniting. Those things are at risk if we don't unite. So I want to re-emphasize, nothing will be lost. And no matter what, this model recommends coming together as one. We have many a times that our students come together as one and do activities together, whether it's a school, a cross-school activity, or it's a community activity. We will work hard through this time to ensure our students are part of that. Dr. Godleski spoke about that. Bringing our students together, that's part of our plan. Absolutely, our students need to be included in the next steps about how we join together. What are some of the wonderful activities we can start to do now to unite, not just high school students, but our middle school students as well. A lot of concern for traffic. We too have a concern for traffic. Unfortunately, it is not something the school district has a lot of control over. Boy, do I wish we did, but we don't. And unfortunately, there is more congestion right now over in the Liberty area based on the number of stores that are there, based on the number of homes that are over there. But I do want this community to also know, watching what's being approved for construction and building, we are going to see that grow on this side of town as well. And so our plan is also to consider what's the future. And again, all decisions have been made with good intentions. We certainly want to continue to have conversations about traffic, how to, alleviate it with what's in our power. We want to work with our police department. We want to work with our township. Absolutely. It's always been our goal. And we hope we can continue to do that. I think all of us care deeply about our kids and we want them safe. And that is obviously what we want to do here. There's some things within our control we can absolutely do, and then there's some things that we can't. You heard that we will be hoping to advocate tomorrow for the county sheriff's department to do some things with these county roads as well. We want positive experiences for all of our students. As far as the students that spoke tonight, nice. We would never want you not to give your opinions or to share your insights, and I'm happy to hear so many of you have had such positive experiences in the buildings that you're in, and that's because of our staff. Our teachers, our staff, and our administrators who help to build those cultures, and we will continue to do that. Please know you will be okay. You will have wonderful and continue to have wonderful experiences, and you'll get to be with your friends. Thank you for sharing your concerns and your comments. The conversation and questions around renting and when do we run out of schools, I want you to know I asked the assistant commissioners, was that last week, right? Last week, the same thing. What will Jackson do when it runs out of schools? Are you fixing the formula? We asked that same question. Would we prefer to have a revenue stream that we can count on and rent a building? Absolutely. But as somebody mentioned before, we need to take into consideration what are the costs as a landlord to keep a building up, and also how big will our budget deficit be? Will we be able to do that? So that's still all under consideration. I'd like to again thank the people who spoke and acknowledge the hard work of this committee, all good intended. I will address that the recommendations shared tonight from the committee were the model. Was also the facility selection for the middle school. The committee toured both high school facilities and spent almost an entire meeting sharing, and we opened the floor for every board member to, committee member to comment on which school they felt was more appropriate. But in fairness to them, there was a lot of emotion in that room, and I didn't feel it was the right thing to do to have them come to consensus. But I will say within that room, the majority of the people who were speaking felt that Liberty was the better facility. But ultimately, that recommendation, they did not come, I didn't force them to come to consensus, but rather we heard every person who wanted to speak. And we continue to do that, even outside of the committee. I think we mentioned about the rebranding, and we also are very concerned and will continue to work in honoring, as we said earlier, the traditions of all of our schools and our students that have experienced those, and we want to encourage our students to wear their varsity jackets. We want them to do those things. We can't erase that. We need to embrace it and at the same time build together unity in moving forward for the next phase of the Jackson School District. The decision on Liberty was not just based on hallways. It was multi-factor. There were many decisions that went into that recommendation. All of our students are coming together. So deciding about statistics on one school versus another school, these are all our students. We are here for all of them, and we want equitable opportunities for all. Security, absolutely priority for us, And we, right now, again, we're still in the initial phases. We don't know what the final decision will be, but it is at the forefront of our decisions about how many security guards, how many SROs in a building, and providing lots of opportunity to build culture and climate. Our hope is to continue with Common Lunch. Times are different. We do not have students who can stay after school for extra support or to even be involved in extracurriculars. So our hope is to continue that. With more students, though, we feel we may need some more structure to that a little bit, but still allowing for a time during our day that students can have help, access, and opportunity to other activities. Time on a bus is real. 100 square miles town, the third biggest town in this state. So that is real, and we will continue to work on eliminating as much as we can off the time of that. By presenting the tiers that we presented, it provides wiggle room to have a little bit more extra availability. In fact, do you mind speaking a little bit to how that all works and how you configure the transportation routes and how that has a benefit to have a couple of routes afterwards to make some of these longer routes shorter?
Sure. You know, when the routes are designed, they look at the totality of the routes for every tier, and then the last tier overlaps with a lot of the co-curricular activities, the athletics, and so that has been impacted over the previous years because of the tightness of the schedule and also the lack of bus drivers. And so, you know, alleviating that third tier will make sure that we can get our students to games on time. We can schedule games when we want to schedule them, not just move them to times when we are after the last tier. So all of those things go into it to try to maximize the total student experience, especially for the co-curricular activities.
Thank you. Absolutely, special education students are considered. All of our students are considered in making these decisions. Just wanted to address that. A question, and it is in the Q&A, but I will answer it. Are we considering childcare for the 5-6 school? Yes, we are. And we are also looking to create an intramural program for our 5th and 6th graders, intramural sports program. So they have an opportunity to experience many different sports. Again, in bringing our students together, it allows us better opportunity to expand and do things like that. The questions about the operational costs we think we might save, those are all estimates. Please understand that we can't put final numbers to that until we have a model we know we're working with. Clearly, through consolidating, you are not going to need as many resources because you're not doing 2 of everything. But we still have the same number of students, so we are still going to need a great number of staff. But I also want to be careful in not putting something out there that's final yet and worry my staff either. So that's why we haven't come forward with how many staff is this, you know, what are we looking at, and you know, how are you configuring this? The same with the expenses the operational expenses. We have our facility operational expenses we can easily speak to, but as far as the other pieces, we have to get a final model before we can figure that out, and then we have to look at what our the number of students will be taking what course and how many teachers we need for this and for that. And certainly, we have very talented teachers here, and all of that will be taken into consideration, as will our coaches and our co-curriculars. I think I addressed most of the main points that were made tonight. Again, we'll look through this, we capture everything, anything we missed, we'll put into the Q&A if we can, or even bring back to February's meeting to answer maybe a little bit clearer or more details. I know I gotta get back to you about a question you asked, so we'll make sure that we get that for the February meeting. So with that, I think I'm done, and then I'll turn back to you for board comments again.
So someone asked about 5th through 8 model. So the committee did talk about the 5th through 8 model, but the administrators and everyone in that committee did not feel that that was a model that we could move forward with. And actually, in this district, there was a 5th through 8 for a little bit, and that's why you now have your 5th graders back into your elementary schools. And actually, I'm a numbers person for those that know me. So if we did a 5th through 8 in this district, we would be the largest 5th through 8 in the state. We would have 1,991 kids in one school. All the schools that have 5th through 8 are one schools. And some of those schools have 900 kids, and most of them have 400 to 500 kids. So that's why 5th through 8, plus the age range, wouldn't work for our district being that large of an amount of kids in the one school. Second of all, just so many of you may or may not know, we are the 32nd largest district in the state out of 670 schools. So we're dealing with a lot of kids. So it's very easy when people message me or put on Facebook, can we put a 7th through 12th? Sure, we could put a 7th through 12th if we had 400 kids. There are schools that have that. They have 400 kids through their 7th and 12th. We have 7,000 kids. We would have over 2,000 kids in each of those 7th through 8th, through 7th through 12 schools. So just to give you a little bit, I'm sorry, we would have 1,350 kids if we put McAuliffe and Liberty together, and we would have actually 1,960 kids if we put Getz and Memorial. So it would be very large in that age range, again, 7th through 12, just to give you an estimate. Someone asked, I think the young lady left, of what schools our children go to. So I am a Memorial parent. My daughter is a junior. She is one of those seniors you talk about. But if anyone knows me, I was voted upon not by just the Memorial parents, but I was voted on by the entire community. And so I don't take these decisions lightly. I actually do a lot of my research for those that know me. And so for the last 2 weeks, I've been driving to Liberty at the crack of dawn. And I've been doing it for 2 weeks. And I've been doing it at every time. And I've been doing it from all areas in Jackson, whether it's Hawken Road, whether it's Reed Road, whether it's Hampshire Hills, Hope Chapel Road, at the crack of dawn. I don't know if anyone else is doing that, but I've been doing that. By now, I might as well be a student at Liberty. So for those of you that think I make decisions just based on what's good for my children, well, then you obviously didn't vote in the right person, and you should know that there's an opening every year. So, thank you.
I'm just going to say, we should probably do board comments. So let's start with Mike, and then that would be Allison's, I think, and then we'll continue through. So go ahead, Mr. Walsh.
Actually, I was going to bring this up earlier, but for all the seniors this year, okay, there is over 250 scholarships, and it is open right now for seniors to apply for these scholarships. It is going to close February 13th. So I just wanted to do that little broadcast right there to get the seniors going. This is a very difficult decision, and it's an emotional decision that's going on, all right? And me personally, I don't have all the facts yet, so I'll leave it at that. I'm just collecting information.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same position, still looking at facts. We just got some traffic data that came across, so looking that over. I am attending the meeting tomorrow for traffic with the county, so I'm interested to hear what their plan is and how they could help our district out. I appreciate everybody who got up. I think it's great that we have this involvement. It'd be great if it was here over the summer, too. Thank you.
Dr. Osmond?
I also wanted to just add to the parent who came up and asked what side of town we're all from and, where we go. And same thing as Ally was saying, I think people need to remember that they did vote us in. You gave us the responsibility to do this. And I just want to speak on behalf of the board. Being on this board, this is my second term that I got sworn into today. This is a really ethical group. And, I have a senior. I'm down to my last senior in the district. And, we're not basing things on what does Jack want, right? When we look out in this audience, I'm just looking out today and I see little D over here. I know this kid like his entire life, right? He's on the other side of town. I would like him to have a nice education too. So we are trying to be as bias-free as possible, which is why I did make the comment earlier to try to give us information and things that you think we're missing that are not emotional, because we're trying our best to look at the data and make, an informed decision that we know whichever one we choose, half the town isn't gonna love us, right? But we have friends and family on both sides of the town, so it will be much better if we could go, well, we did that because if you look at the data, right? So we're trying to be bias-free in that way. A few people came up and basically said we should appreciate that this is difficult for seniors. As most of us have children up here, we get that it's difficult. We appreciate that. This is a really hard decision to make. We're volunteering our time. We're trying to read all the data. We're trying to make everybody happy. It's a tall order, right? So I also just want to say that change is always hard, but it doesn't mean that it's bad. Like, I'm looking at what was proposed to us, and I really like the upper elementary school. I think because we have, and I'm speaking as an educator now, because we have kids who did go through COVID, who have been moved around with virtual live sessions at home, that in 4th grade, school starts to get more difficult. And so a lot of you will start to notice in 5th grade where your kids' strengths are, but you'll also notice where their weaknesses are. And so there's a captive audience of 5th and 6th graders that the school could just focus on those 5th and 6th graders. And it's a great opportunity to be innovative with that group of kids who maybe you could stop some learning gaps quicker because there's smaller grades there. You could focus solely on them. So I see some good opportunities here, and I think that we need to recognize that as well. I've said this in past meetings, I'll say it again. You create the own culture in your schools. If you want kids to have great experiences, it starts at home, you set the tone, right? So I think we could get that in whatever schools we use if, like one of our teachers said, you're careful with what you say, you're positive around your kids, you let them know that they're going to be successful wherever they are. So I just want us to keep that in mind, and thank you all for coming out tonight. Mr. Rack?
All right, thank you for everyone for coming out this evening and viewing us as live stream. I value your input, comments, everyone's hard work and dedication. We all have a lot of considerations. We all need to come together united as one Jackson. Thank you, and everyone have a safe and wonderful evening.
I just want to say, since I have front row Coach Mastretta right in front of me, but I want to say I hope that all of our coaches from both schools and all of our our extracurricular advisors, I hope that you're all starting to talk to each other. You're all colleagues of each other. You've all working in the Jackson School District. And wouldn't it be nice if for the sake of the children, you come together and figure out how to work together and create the most amazing teams, to create the most amazing theater productions? I think that if you really got into this profession for all the right reasons, that would be the most exciting thing to me, is to see everyone come together. It's not the building that makes these children, because listen, I've been talking to people throughout the state, lots of friends of mine, teachers, principals, superintendents in other school districts, and some of them work in the worst buildings that you've ever seen, but they are ranked in the top 10%. It's not the building that made the kid. It's the teachers, it's their families, it's the students that made those kids who they are. And so that's all I have to say. Thanks.
So last meeting, I really didn't say much because it is an emotional decision. So I just want to say, I know I typed something up this time, so I'm going to read it on and off. So I know I'm not alone up on this board when I have said that I can say I've lost sleep. I've spent countless hours having discussions about all the same concerns that many people brought up. Asking myself a question like, why now is now it? I was elected to the board 2 years ago, and if you paid attention to when I ran, I talked a lot about that our S2 cuts, if we didn't resolve them, there was a lot of tough financial decisions that had to be made in Jackson to be sustainable. It's not really like a new idea. It's just that we're here now. And we didn't want to sit here, but this board's sitting here. And change is hard, it's emotional. We all know this in this room as adults, and we know it because we've lived it. We have kids, many of us, right? And we know what it's like to give them something new. Like, God forbid you bring home the wrong mac and cheese, okay? And your kid gets negatively upset over that, right? And sometimes we have to get what we have to get. Sometimes we need our kids to deal with what we get them. Sometimes we can't let their negative emotions trickle down to our family because it's going to impact all the other things that we might have going on in that same exact instance. So I'm not saying that kids shouldn't have to deal with change. But when we get that off-brand mac and cheese, right, whether we mean to or we don't, right, I've made so many mistakes like that. I pull the wrong kind of mac and cheese, okay? We probably worked a full day or a full night. We have evening commitments that we are driving to. We have maybe chores we do around our house every evening. We have volunteer opportunities, right? We can completely lose it as parents in that moment of the wrong mac and cheese. Or we could guide them through the wrong mac and cheese. And I'm going to say that we, in our community right now, we have to pick the latter. We have to point out similarities, the positive impacts of certain decisions, the cause and effect. And we need to know that eventually our kids' ability to cope positively will benefit everybody around them, including our parents and our communities and our future kids. We have to give them the tools to build something great within themselves. And that is a tool called resilience. The capacity to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties, a toughness. We heard each other tonight, and my hope is that all the engaged adults and kids here today can focus on accepting the challenge of building resilience. Collectively, we can make a decision to focus on the positive outcomes and work together to support our children into fruition, pointing out shifts along with how those shifts benefit us in the future. So, I don't think it doesn't mean that there's not going to be tears or feelings of disappointment, but every day we have a choice to pick our outlook. And, I just want everybody to know that my perspective is going to be on every decision or recommendation that we're voting for, it's going to be trying to pick a positive outlook and be a positive role model for the people around me. And I hope that we can all do that, listen to each other constructively. We're going to come here again in 2 weeks. And really, I think everybody on this board would appreciate, I can't speak for anybody, but I could say that I could appreciate that, constructive comments are a lot better than decisive and discorded ones. And if we could just model that, it would be appreciated moving forward. And I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I appreciate all the hard work of everybody up here, committee members, admin, the board, and everybody in our community. So thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn by acclamation. Oh, I need a second. I'm sorry. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
By acclamation.
Aye.